Chapter 2309. Xiaohua said it was fine, but his heart was thumping as he became vigilant. Although this wasn't a special secret of his, if it were to fall into the eyes of someone with ulterior motives, especially the masters of sects like the Taiching sect, it would definitely be more dangerous than secrets like the Buddhist sect's cultivation level and the dragonization art. No need to thank me. Fang Yuan cupped his fists. I hope that by going to Jinquan Mountain with junior brother Xiao, I will be able to return safely. I think so. Xiaohua thought inwardly and answered casually, these weapon cultivators and sword cultivators are only so. Senior brother, his luck is so good, of course you will be fine. Sigh, don't talk about weapon cultivators and beast cultivators. Hearing this, Fang Yuan smiled bitterly. Before coming to patrol Heaven City, I searched the sect's records to study the weakness of weapon cultivators, sword cultivators, and beast cultivators. However, I did not find the weakness. Instead, I found that sword cultivators are better, but weapon cultivators and beast cultivators are different from the records in the sect. Oh. What's the difference? Xiaohua was surprised. He did not have time to look at Imperial Thunder Sect's records, so he did not know what Fang Yuan was talking about. Junior brother Xiao, you didn't notice. Fang Yuan looked at Xiaohua. That beast cultivator is strange. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and shrugged. I smashed it to death. I really did not notice. Junior brother Xiao, you really have nothing to worry about. Fang Yuan was speechless. Didn't you see that beast cultivators actually refine spirit beasts into their bodies? Is that so? What's so strange about it? Isn't that how beast cultivators do it? Xiaohua asked. The ignorant are fearless. Fang Yuan sighed and thought for a while before asking, do you know Shi Country's spirit husbandry sect? I do. Xiaohua nodded. They rear spirit beasts and use them for battle, of course I know. That's good. Fang Yuan nodded. Actually, in Taiching sect's records, beast cultivators are similar to spirit husbandry sect, but beast cultivators are stronger and their spirit beasts are of higher grade. Moreover, beast cultivators are the same as sword cultivators. They can place their primordial spirits in spiritual beasts and control them more flexibly. Ah! Only now did Xiaohua understand Fang Yuan's words and shouted in shock, isn't that so? The beast cultivators I saw today had the bodies of humans, but their heads were the heads of spirit beasts. Exactly. Fang Yuan nodded solemnly. Beast cultivators can actually refine spirit beasts into their bodies. This is a symbiosis with spirit beasts. Not only do they have the strength of cultivators, they also have the innate abilities of spirit beasts. This is something that our Dao sect cultivators cannot compare to. That tool cultivator, is he alright? Xiaohua probed. Not necessarily. Fang Yuan shook his head again. Weapon cultivators are the same as sword cultivators, they have the cultivation path of man and sword as one. But that's only possible if you reach the transformation stage, which is the same as my Dao sect's nascent soul stage cultivators. Those weapon cultivators just now were obviously only at the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, but they were actually able to connect their bodies with magic treasures. They were only one step away from transforming into a weapon. This is simply inconceivable. And what I don't understand the most is that they seem to have a problem with their brains. What do you mean? Xiaohua asked again. Let's not talk about that Changbai sect senior. He escaped after killing 2 weapon cultivators. It is normal that these weapon cultivators and beast cultivators did not escape. Fang Yuan explained again. But when Dao friend Xiao and the other Imperial Thunder sect disciples came, they were clearly not our match and should have escaped. But they simply did not run, they stubbornly defended until we killed them one by one. Don't you think this is strange? That is true. Xiaohua really did not think so much, only when Fang Yuan mentioned it did he realize that these were indeed some inexplicable details. Maybe, they have a mission. They don't dare to leave. Xiaohua said softly. What mission can there be in such a remote place? Fang Yuan shook his head. Even if there is a mission, they should escape first. Maybe they want to intercept us. Xiaohua said casually. That is impossible. Fang Yuan smiled. When we teleported out of Patrol Heaven City, we were very secretive and quickly flew towards Quanjin Mountain. Even if our two teams have the same mission, we do not know each other. How could they know? Senior brother, his words make sense. Xiaohua nodded and looked ahead. We should tell Dao Frenchui about this. You are the leaders of the two teams after all. Dao Frenchui. Fang Yuan was surprised. You, don't call him senior brother. This is my myriad Thunder Valley's family matter. Dao friend, he should not interfere. Xiaohua waved his hand. All right, all right. Fang Yuan smiled. No matter what, I will always side with junior brother Xiao, don't worry about this. Just based on what Dao friend he said earlier, I will remember this favor. Xiaohua smiled and nodded, sending Fang Yuan off with his gaze. This is troublesome. Although Xiaohua did not seem to care, he was muttering in his heart. How could he not care about the concern of Tai Ching sect's master? That was a sect that was even more powerful than the Imperial Thunder sect. It was estimated that because the Tai Ching sect was in Meng country and the Imperial Thunder sect was in Shi country, and Xiaohua had been appearing and disappearing unpredictably all these years, the disciples of the Tai Ching sect didn't receive any news about Xiaohua, so they didn't directly look for him. It was hard to say who would win in this sword path battle. Sigh, keep a low profile, keep a low profile. Xiaohua was gloomy. I just want to cultivate peacefully. I already gave the credit to some Changbai sect senior, how can I retreat? However, Fang Yuan's words are really strange. If the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator did not have some mission, then they might have been affected by the artifact or spirit beast, losing the vigilance and thinking that cultivators should have. Not to mention Xiaohua's speculation about whether the artifact cultivator and beast cultivator had some mission. Far away in the west of Shi country, at the border with Huan country, an emerald green sword light was flying through the sky in the biting cold wind. On that sword light was a person wearing a long green robe. This swordsman's hair was white, his cheekbones were bulging, and there were no wrinkles on his pale yellow face. As the sword light flickered, the swordsman's body would sway slightly. That sword intent pierced into the air, piercing through the cold wind. Not to mention the snowflakes that were faintly floating in the air, they could not even get close to him. As the swordsman's body swayed, the sword light would transform from time to time, and a green sword would appear on that sword light. This swordsman was actually an illusory sword cultivator. Just as the illusory swordsman flew past a towering cliff, the sword intent cut through a baby fist-sized icicle on the cliff. That icicle fell down the cliff, and no sound could be heard for a long time. From the front of the swordsman, a fiery red brilliance quickly chased after him. Whose flying sword book is it? That swordsman frowned slightly, his body stopping in the air. That green sword phantom immediately withdrew into his body, and with a wave of his hand, a finger-long flying sword landed in his hand. When the swordsman finished reading the contents of the flying sword, his expression changed greatly, and he shouted with a stern voice, "Idiot! You ruined my plan. 100 deaths are not worth regretting." As he spoke, sword light appeared in his hand, and that flying sword was actually torn apart by the sword light in the swordsman's hand. Like a piece of white paper, it turned into fragments and fell from the sky. This makes this sword. The swordsman gritted his teeth and hesitated, as if he wanted to turn back. However, the swordsman stood in the air for a long time, and in the end, he flew up again and flew forward. But this time, there was no sword light like before, only a green figure. The swordsman flew for more than half a day and arrived in front of a towering ice mountain. The ice mountain was extremely high, piercing straight into the gloomy sky, as if it was going to pierce the sky. This ice mountain was extremely wide, stretching for more than 10 miles. The swordsman flew to the ice mountain and did not stop. Instead, he flew around the ice mountain, and in the time it took to eat a meal, a crack that was several feet wide appeared in the ice. The swordsman hesitated for a moment, and then rushed into the crack. The crack was between the ice mountain, and a huge whirlwind was generated from the crack, as if it could blow the swordsman away in an instant. However, the sword light around the swordsman's body flashed, and a green treasure sword appeared. Wang wang, a burst of sound was heard, and the sword light slashed down, splitting the whirlwind. In an instant, there was a moment of silence. And in this moment of silence, the sword light flashed, and the swordsman rushed into the crack. Out of the crack, the swordsman's eyes lit up, and a huge lake appeared in front of him. The surface of the lake was extremely large and emerald green. Icy mountains surrounded the surface of the huge lake, blocking the surrounding cold wind. Moreover, several pale white rays of sunlight shot out from the dark clouds in the sky, like huge light swords, piercing into the lake in the valley. Under the sunlight, the lake not only became more green, but there was not even the slightest sound of wind. There were no ripples on the surface of the lake, and it was really like a huge gem. The swordsman was not shocked by the strange scene in front of him, as if he was already used to it. He flew past a corner of Lake Shui, and landed on one of the protrusions on the stone wall, and stood there quietly. On the left side of the stone wall he was standing on, not only were there rare spirit grasses growing everywhere, even under the stone wall, near Lake Shui, there were spirit grasses that were the size of a fist and looked like lotus flowers that were full of vitality. The lotus-like spirit fruits emitted a delicate fragrance, and even if the swordsman stood high up, he could still faintly smell it. However, the swordsman was distracted, and did not pay attention to it. Looking at the surroundings of Lake Shui, on the stone wall, there were dozens of protrusions. And at this time, on these protrusions, there were many different swordsmen. Among these swordsmen, most of them were similar to the swordsman who just came. They stood there quietly, with their eyes slightly closed, and their entire bodies seemed to be in a trance. Each one of them was like an unsheathed sword, and the shape of the sword was faintly discernible. These swordsmen were actually at the illusory sword realm. Chapter 23:10. As for the remaining cultivators, they were naturally beast cultivators and weapon cultivators. Not to mention the crouching tiger and coiling dragon of the beast cultivators, the shadows of the strange spirit beasts would appear from time to time. Even the artifact cultivators would occasionally release the light of the artifact cultivators. All of this indicated that these deviant cultivators also had the cultivation of the sword cultivator's illusory sword. An hour passed by quickly, and another dozen or so swordsmen arrived on their swords and stopped on the stone wall. Clank! A loud sound like a sharp sword rang out. A green sword ray flew out from the wall opposite of the green-clothed swordsman and landed on Lake Shui like a meteor. The sword energy on the sword ray was like frost, and layers of ice began to form on the surface of Lake Shui. Wang wang, on the stone walls surrounding Lake Shui, all the swordsmen released their sword intent, creating a fierce hurricane. Every swordsman's body let out a sword cry. Welcome, fellow swordsmen. The emerald green sword light receded, revealing a woman in emerald green sword attire. The woman's face was extremely cold, and there was a murderous aura between her eyebrows. Although she called out to everyone, there was not much warmth in her eyes. Zing, 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 dozens of sword lights that were not inferior to the female swordsman's flew out from the stone walls and landed on the surface of Lake Shui. Although the swordsmen appeared to be standing in a disorderly manner, they were clearly positioned from top to bottom and left to right. It was obvious that this was a very profound sword formation. I am Black Phoenix Sword Sex Lu Ruochang. Greetings, fellow swordsmen. The female swordsman cupped her fists and bowed towards the crowd. Greetings, LV Jianyu. The swordsmen also cupped their fists in return. Lu Ruochang straightened up and said coldly, "The sword Dao war has been going on for more than a year. Our sword cultivators have suffered great losses. On the other hand, the Dao sect cultivators did not suffer many losses either. The Dao sect has the advantage in numbers. If we sword cultivators are unable to find a way to win and obtain victory in a short period of time, we will definitely be forced to retreat in the end." LV Jianyu, that's easy for you to say. Do you have a way to win? A tall, middle-aged sword cultivator dressed in red swordsman attire coldly replied, "We sword cultivators have fought countless battles with the Dao sect. We've always had the upper hand in the beginning. Later on, we were gradually pushed back. In the end, we were forced to retreat to the sword realm. There were even many great battles where we were forced to retreat at the beginning. Could it be that my sword cultivator seniors aren't as smart as you? Hee, so it's Qin Jian of the Void Heaven Sword School." A rare smile appeared on Lu Ruochang's face. "Swordsman Qin, you're now famous in the Dao sect. They've searched the entire border between the state of Shi and the Sword region to find you. I heard that your bounty has risen to an extremely high level." This Qin is untalented." Qin Jian laughed coldly. "I, Qin, do not know how to win. I only want to kill as many cultivators as possible. Once I kill them one by one, wouldn't the cultivators retreat? If it's as sword friend Qin said, then it's simple." Another old man dressed in khaki swordsman attire shook his head. "There are as many cultivators as there are hairs on a cow. Even if they stand there and let us kill them, I'm afraid we won't be able to kill them all." Swordsman Yuan Qing, does everyone in the skyscraper sword school have such thoughts? Are you scared witless by a bunch of pigs? Qin Jian glanced at the old man and sneered. Heh, I won't be so stupid as to kill those useless pigs." Yuan Qing of the Motian sword sect smiled and did not refute. Sigh, yes, if it were so simple, then there wouldn't be thousands of remains of sword cultivators in the sword tomb. There wouldn't be thousands of broken swords wailing. Lu Ruochang also sighed. At this moment, a middle-aged swordsman with a red face said, "Swordsman Lu, this is only the first stage of the battle. We only need to follow the instructions of our masters and kill as many cultivators as possible so that we won't be forced back to the sword realm." "Why are you so pessimistic?" Chu Jianchong from the Xianjian sect. Lu Ruochang glanced at the middle-aged swordsman and asked, "How is Duan Yuming, swordsman Duan? The 4 people from your Xianjian sect have all died at the hands of cultivators. Our battle this time also originated from your Xianjian sect. You should be on my side. Thank you for your concern, Swordsman Lu. Senior Duan's primordial spirit has returned and has entered the Xianjian sect sword pool to recuperate. If he can find a suitable body, he can take over it. Otherwise, he can't use the secret technique of weapon cultivators to feed the sword with his body and become a sword spirit." Chu Jianchong said in a sorrowful voice. "How sad." Lu Ruochang sighed softly. "This sword is naturally on LV Jinyo's side." Chu Jianchong cupped his hands and said, "However, Chu thinks that we don't need to think too much. We only need to exhaust the strength of the Xianjian sect in the early stages of the battle and kill all the Qi refinement and foundation establishment disciples. This is to complete the task given by our masters. It's all nonsense." A drawn-out voice sounded. It was a weapon cultivator whose body was flashing with a faint brilliance. The weapon cultivator was extremely tall, like a bamboo pole. In the brilliance, there were several sections of a pagoda faintly visible. Didn't I hear that LV Jianchong was going to set up a formation in the sword catacomb? What's the situation? The weapon cultivator said coldly, I thought that everything was in order. I only need to lure all the cultivators to the sword catacomb. That's why I came over. If I'm going to listen to your nonsense, I'm going to turn back. Hee hee, so it's Senior Fan Kue Yuan from the 7 Spiritual Mountains. Lu Ruochang smiled and said, Senior Fan, don't be anxious. How can the illusory sword formation be easy to set up? Moreover, a simple sword formation may not be able to trap so many cultivators. I've left some assassins in the illusory sword formation. This isn't something that can be done easily. Oh. Then I've wrongly accused you. If there's anything you need the 7 spiritual mountains to do, just say it. If those formation weapons are to be used, I'll personally go into battle. With Senior Fan's words, I'm 100 times more confident. Lu Ruochang cupped his hands and said, I've invited all of you here to ask about your preparations. So you've already made preparations. Not bad, not bad. Fan Kui Yuan nodded with a smile. Sword friends from the Clear Sword Sect, Lunar Sun Sword Sect, Flame Bamboo Sword Sect, Failing Sword Manor, and Soaring Wind Sword Sect. What's your situation? Can you tell us about it? Lu Ruochang's gaze swept across everyone, and the green-robed swordsman shrunk his neck slightly. Lu Ruochang was very sharp, and a trace of sternness flashed in his eyes. He then looked at the others. Zhong Haoshuan from the Clear Sword Sect greets all of you. An extremely robust swordsman cupped his hands and said, My Clear Sword Sect has already found the sword spirit used in the illusory sword formation. If I'm not wrong, we should be able to find it within 3 months. Good. Lu Ruochang clapped his hands and praised, the yin-yang sword spirit that the Clear Sword Sect is looking for is the most demanding. I didn't expect sword friend Zhong to be so capable to have found it in such a short period of time. It's really praiseworthy. Chapter 23:11. My luck is indeed not bad. But this is also because the heavens are protecting my sword region. That Dao sect cultivator's luck has come to an end. Let them know who the true king of the Dawn Rain continent is. Zhong Haoshuan nodded coldly. Mu Ting of the Lunar Sword Sect greets my fellow swordsman. A female swordsman dressed similarly to LV Ruochang stepped forward and bowed. However, this female swordsman's face was as beautiful as a flower, and she smiled wholeheartedly. The sword spirit that my Lunar Sword Sect was looking for has been obtained. It is currently being nurtured in my Lunar Sword Valley sword pool. If the illusory sword formation needs to be used, I can retrieve it at any time. The following 2 people, Tian Simu of the Flaming Bamboo Sword Sect and Ruoling of the Failing Sword Manor, both spoke about the results of their sections. The sword spirit and other items that they needed were all prepared. As long as LV Ruochang gave the order, the illusory sword great battle could begin. Good. Seeing that the swordsmen had completed their tasks extremely well, LV Ruochang smiled and said, Thank you for your assistance, fellow swordsmen. I am extremely grateful. Back then, when you recommended me to take charge of the illusory sword formation, I was very nervous. With all of you sword friends working tirelessly, this sword finally has some confidence in my heart. LV Jianyu. The weapon cultivator, Fan Ming Yuan, frowned slightly and said, I know about this illusory sword formation. I have used it before. Just by relying on it, this formation can kill Dao sect cultivators in the middle stage of the Golden Core stage, but it will be troublesome to deal with those in the late stage of the Golden Core stage. Moreover, with so many foundation establishment and chi refinement cultivators, the illusory sword formation might not be able to withstand it, right? Senior Fan is right. LV Ruochang said respectfully. However, the last time this formation was set up was 3,000 years ago. Back then, countless Dao sect cultivators were killed, and the Golden Core cultivators were also frightened. If not for the 3 late-stage Golden Core cultivators who suddenly became nascent souls, I am afraid that we would have achieved even more glorious results. Yes, since you know, could it be that your illusory sword formation is even more powerful than the previous one? Of course. Lu Ruochang nodded his head confidently. This time, I have set up the illusory sword formation in the sword tomb. Firstly, I can make use of the sword intent of the remnant sword in the sword tomb to increase the lethality of the illusory sword formation. Secondly, I can make use of the metal qi in the sword tomb to suppress the spiritual qi between the Dao sect cultivators and the heaven and earth, preventing any more Golden Core cultivators from conceiving. In this way, not only can we kill cultivators in a large area, we can even kill late Golden Core stage cultivators. Yes, what LV Jianyu said makes sense. Weapon cultivator Fan Mingyuan nodded slightly. There are very few cultivators with a metal attribute constitution in the 3 cultivation kingdoms. Furthermore, it's unlikely that they'll be able to use the metal qi within the sword tomb. Furthermore, the sword catacomb is the most eye-catching place for sword cultivators and the Dao sect. You set up the illusory sword array there to lure them into the trap. They will definitely be surprised. Hehe, isn't this what the Dao sect meant by catching the enemy off guard? A swordsman laughed. I still have some misgivings. Weapon cultivator Fan Mingyuan was still worried. There are a lot of Foundation establishment disciples in the Dao sect. Our illusory sword array doesn't have a sword cultivator to support it. I'm afraid, hehe, Senior Fan. LV Ruochang was not angry at Fan Mingyuan's insistence on getting to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he was very willing for him to ask. LV Ruochang replied with a smile, "This is one of the things that I want to tell you." As he spoke, LV Ruochang looked at the green-robed swordsman and said with a smile, "Ling Yunwu from the Lingfang sword sect, have you received what I gave you? Have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs?" Ah. Spirit-swallowing bugs. Hearing this, all the sword cultivators were stunned and looked at each other. Fan Mingyuan asked curiously, "LV Jianyu, are you talking about the spirit-swallowing bugs?" "Yes." LV Ruochang looked away from Ling Yunwu and replied with a smile, "I found some records about the spirit-swallowing bugs in the ancient books of the Black Phoenix Sword Sect. 100 years ago, when I was traveling in the Meng Mountains, I happened to get the black silk wood. Therefore, I gave it to Ling Jianyu and asked him to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. After all, the spirit-swallowing bugs are near the Chestnut Valley, which is the closest to the Lingfang Sword Sect." "Well, I kind of understand now." Fan Mingyuan nodded slightly. LV Jianyu planned to use the spirit-swallowing bugs to devour the qi refining and foundation establishment cultivators, and then use the illusory sword array to deal with the rest of the cultivators? Exactly. Lu Ruochang's tone was slightly arrogant as he said, "This worm is the head of all spiritual worms in the world. It loves to devour spiritual energy, Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures refined by Daoist cultivators, as well as their vital essence. It is very suitable to kill cultivators. I set a part of the illusory sword array especially for the spirit-swallowing bugs. Let's call it the spirit-swallowing array for now. As long as foundation building stage and qi refining stage disciples enter this formation, they will certainly be killed by the spirit-swallowing bugs." "Well, good." The few weapon cultivators beside Fan Mingyuan also nodded slightly. However, the few beast cultivators beside them had unsightly expressions on their faces. "Ling Jianyu, have you found the spirit-swallowing bugs?" Fan Mingyuan looked at Ling Yunwu again. "Why don't you say anything? Do you want to give me a surprise? LV Ruochang smiled again, which was rare. After all, the spirit swallowing bugs was her trick, and she had already given the windy silk wood to the Lingfeng sword sect, which was the safest step in the illusory sword array. She didn't think there would be any mistakes. Well, Ling Yunwu, who was in cyan clothes, was a little embarrassed. He mumbled and hesitated. Thump. LV Ruochang felt something was wrong and said coldly, LV Jianyu, what do you mean? I gave you the windy silk wood and the sword pouch. Don't tell me you didn't see them. Of course not. Ling Yunwu smiled apologetically. I've already got the windy silk wood and the sword pouch, and I've been to Chestnut Valley many times. According to LV Jinyu's records, I finally found some clues. Although I can't be completely sure, but, in that case, why don't you tell me directly? LV Ruochang was relieved. It's just that, when I was on my way here, I received a flying sword message from the sword sect. Ling Yunwu gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, more than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples I sent to find the spirit-swallowing bugs, were all killed. More than 30 bright sword third-grade disciples? All killed. LV Ruochang was also surprised. The Taoism sect actually attacked Chestnut Valley. Was there a gold core cultivator? Well, Ling Yunwu said awkwardly, the Taoism sect cultivators haven't attacked Chestnut Valley yet. These disciples were killed near White Jade Mountain. Didn't your disciples go to Chestnut Valley to find the spirit-swallowing bugs? Why did they go to White Jade Mountain? LV Ruochang sneered, Ling Jianyu, don't tell me, you gave the sword pouch and the black silk wood to your disciples. That's right. That's right. Ling Yunwu's expression was uncertain. LV Ruochang's expression changed greatly. He stared at Ling Yunwu for a long time and sneered, Ling Jianyu, you're really at ease. That's the black silk wood, one of the few spiritual woods that can be used to find the spirit-swallowing bugs. You actually let your disciples, who are only at the bright sword realm, be in charge of it. And that sword pouch, although it's empty, it's still a treasure. You don't have to worry about letting people hold it. Do you really think that the things of my Black Phoenix Sword sect are not things? Alas, no matter what LV Jianyu says, I can't refute it. Ling Yunwu smiled bitterly. I already had a plan last time. I was going to go there personally, but with LV Jinyu's spiritual sword summoning me, I dare not come. Moreover, I was afraid of delaying LV Jinyu's important matter, so I sent my capable disciples. I wanted to give you all a surprise during this period. But who knew? But who knew that your proud disciples actually ran to the White Jade Mountain and were killed by the practitioners of the Gold Core realm? LV Ruochang seemed to be ruthless and said coldly, I've already explained the matter of the spirit-swallowing bugs clearly. The spirit-swallowing bugs are the most important part of the illusory sword formation. If your Lingfeng sword sect delays this matter, you'll have to bear the consequences. Yes. What else could Ling Yunwu say? He cupped his hands and said, I feel guilty. When this matter is over, I'll immediately go to the White Jade Mountain and find the black silk wood and the sword pouch to atone for my mistakes. Atone for your mistakes? What kind of achievements do you have? LV Ruochang sneered, who knows which Gold Core realm practitioner killed the 30 swordsmen? Where are you going to find him? LV Jianyu. A beast practitioner who had been silent for a long time whispered, you don't only need the black silk wood to find the spirit-swallowing bugs, right? There are a few other kinds. And if we know the approximate location of the spirit-swallowing bugs, our Quilted Mountain sect has a secret technique that can help us find them. LV Ruochang looked up at the beast practitioner who was as short as a baby and sighed, where are we going to find the other kinds of spiritual objects? Besides, I know that the Quilted Mountain sect and the 7 spiritual mountains have this secret technique, but I'm sure Senior Green Peak knows the consequences of the secret technique better than I do, right? Alas, what's the point of talking about the consequences at this point? Green Peak said bitterly, we beast practitioners have always been regarded as abnormal by the Daoist sect. We're indebted to the sword practitioners for protecting us. Now, as long as we can use our beast practitioners, we'll do it even if we have to sacrifice our lives. Okay. LV Ruochang nodded and didn't comment. Let's wait for my news. Ling Yunwu felt very guilty and smiled apologetically. If news of my death comes, Senior Green Peak will make the decision. What are you talking about? Fan Mingyuan scolded, although we don't cultivate Daoist techniques and don't understand karma, we're still cultivators in the world. You can't speak nonsense. Yes, I understand. Ling Yunwu hurriedly bowed. Humph, LV Ruochang glanced at Ling Yunwu coldly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a bird's cry. It was like a mournful wail that soared into the sky. It pierced everyone's ears and immediately disrupted the tranquility of the valley. Even the quiet sound of the lake had layers of ripples. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chidian. Calm. Chapter 23:12. Who is it? The swordsmen were shocked and turned to look. A yellow light flashed, and from the light, a giant rock that was hundreds of feet in size rushed into the valley, closely rubbing against the cracks in the valley. Once the giant rock entered the valley, it immediately spread its wings. Its huge wings flapped, and the wind howled, casting its shadow on Lake Shui. The giant rock did not stop. Instead, it circled above Lake Shui, and its sharp eyes swept past the swordsmen. The swordsmen, weapon cultivators, and beast cultivators felt a chill in their hearts. Then, their faces became respectful again, and they bowed in unison. After the giant rock circled around Lake Shui, it proudly landed on the stone wall and retracted its wings. At this moment, two distinct figures, one tall and one short, were revealed on the giant rock's back. The most conspicuous one was naturally the tall one. This person was 3 feet tall, had thick arms, and a muscular body. On his head, which was much larger than a dipper, was a big red nose. It was very eye-catching. Looking at the short figure, he was shorter than an ordinary person by more than half, and only reached the giant's knees. There was nothing special about this dwarf, but there was always a cunning look in his 2 small eyes from time to time. Pang! The giant landed on a protrusion on the stone wall, and the stone wall shook slightly. Greetings, Senior Qi. The swordsmen bowed in unison. The giant rock was Qi Ping, the valley master of the Osprey Valley in the Heng country. He was a beast cultivator whose cultivation was comparable to a sword transformation realm cultivator. Wait for me. Qi Ping withdrew his figure and reverted to a middle-aged man covered in yellow light. He raised his hand and gestured. Yes. The swordsman stood up. How did the discussion go? Qi Ping asked. We respected what you said and only delayed the Path Sect's cultivators near Sky Patrol City. Moreover, we are setting up a large formation in the Sword Tomb, and we are preparing to give the Path Sect a head-on blow. Lu Ruochang replied respectfully. Just as he was about to introduce his plan, Qi Ping waved his hand and said, This is something that you should worry about. Don't tell this old man. It's not my turn to step up yet. Yes, I understand. This is a chance for us to train. LV Ruochang didn't dare to say much and replied respectfully. Yes, this old man is here to bring you some news. Qi Ping raised his hand and said, This is the chief of the mountain crossing giant tribe, Lian Xiaoqiao. This is the chief of the cloud cave dwarf tribe, Gao Dezhuang. I believe all of you sword friends know that the giant tribe and the dwarf tribe are also participating in this war under the persuasion of the sword cultivator elders. Everyone hasn't seen the two tribe leaders yet, right? Although the giant had given him an extremely xiao name, and the dwarf had given him an extremely name, none of the swordsmen dared to laugh. Their faces were all unusually respectful. When he heard Chi Peng's introduction, he bowed again and said, "Greetings, Patriarch Lien and Patriarch Gao." "Yes, get up, get up." Gao Dezhuang was very happy and waved his hand to signal everyone to get up. Even Xiao Chao didn't say anything. It's great news that the giants and dwarves are joining the war. Chi Ping said again, however, this old man has even better news to share with all of you. This old man has joined forces with the elders of a few weapon cultivators and beast cultivators to head to Alchemy Valley. I have already convinced the two hidden experts in the valley. As long as the two elders appear, the nascent soul cultivators of the Taoist sect will definitely not be their opponents. Moreover, what's even better is that it will definitely not cross the bottom line of the Taoist sect's spirit-severing stage-old monster. When the swordsmen heard this, they all had strange expressions on their faces. Indeed, they didn't even know where the Alchemy Valley was in the Huan country, let alone the hidden experts. "Senior Qi, what you said, is..." Fan Mingyuan seemed to have thought of something and stuttered. "Yes, it's that old man." Chi Ping nodded. "Moreover, there's another old man, who I'm afraid you don't even know. He seems to be even more powerful than the old man you mentioned. This matter is not set in stone yet, so don't think too much. We definitely can't ask them to take action now. In the end, we just need them to appear and control the situation." "Yes, this junior understands." Fan Mingyuan hurriedly bowed and replied. This old man was just in a moment of happiness. This old man is here today to bring you some news." Chi Ping laughed again. Clan leader Gao's people are the best at the earth amplification technique, which is even more powerful than the Taoist sect's 5 elements escape technique. The dwarf clan's people found many Taoist sect cultivators moving in the east of the Sword Realm. Moreover, they seem to be moving to a few fixed places. Hence, clan leader Gao told this old man about this matter. This old man was with clan leader Lien. "When I thought of you all here, I came to inform you." "Yes, thank you for your message, Senior Qi." LV Ruocheng bowed and thanked him. "This is also a topic that we are discussing here. This is a task that my master and I have assigned to us." "Oh. I see." Chi Ping smiled and nodded. "The younger generation will surpass us in time. All right, you all can discuss the arrangements. This old man won't interfere anymore." After he finished speaking, Chi Peng's body glowed with a strange brilliance. It looked faint, but it covered his entire body. When the brilliance disappeared, the giant rock appeared on the stone wall again. With a long cry, the giant rock bent its neck toward the sky. Its cry shook the sky. Then, it flapped its wings and slowly flew up. Gao Dezhuang and Lien Xiaochao hurriedly jumped up and landed on the giant rock's back. Lien Xiaocao's body was so big that even the stone wall shook. However, when she landed on the giant rock's back, the giant rock didn't even sway. This junior respectfully sent Senior Qi off. LV Ruochang and the others bowed respectfully and watched as the giant rock spread its wings and flew through the gap in the valley sealed by the hurricane. When the giant rock's figure disappeared into the gap, LV Ruochang and the others straightened up. Their eyes were still filled with respect. Senior Qi is indeed a godly person. Fan Kuiyuan sighed with emotion. Not only did he find the giant clan, but he also found the mysterious dwarf clan. The most incredible thing is that that person, he actually knew where to go. He invited him out. Who is that person? Who is that person? LV Ruochang couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Senior Chi has given the order. This old man doesn't dare to speak carelessly. Fan Kuiyuan said with a smile. Besides, this old man doesn't know who the other person is. Forget it. LV Ruochang said with a smile. What will come will come. We just have to do our own thing. That's right. Fan Kuiyuan nodded. Then, he asked curiously, Senior Chi's news is very important. I'm afraid it's a new plan of the Taoist sect. Why did LV Jianyu say that you already have a plan? Chapter 23:13. Senior Fan, why do you think the people of Sword Realm are attacking the three countries? LV Ruochang asked with a smile. Are you trying to test this old man? Fan Mingyuan laughed. No, I'm just asking casually. LV Ruochang shook his head slightly. Fan Mingyuan smiled and said, if it was the previous battles, I might have thought that it was because of the conflict between Sword Realm and the three countries, so we had to fight to determine the outcome. However, this old man knows that the reason for today's battle is because of the two girls from the Xianjian sect and the two illusory swordsmen that they lost. However, the truth is that due to the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, spiritual stones, spiritual herbs and other items have decreased. Our sword domain is too narrow and cannot compare to the three countries of the Dao sect. Therefore, we have to snatch their spiritual herbs and spiritual stones. That's right, Senior Fan is right. LV Ruochang nodded and said, this is also what the elders told us at the beginning of the battle. Although the Dao sect's array is not as powerful as the sword array of our sword domain, in terms of concealment and defense, it is stronger than the sword array. At the border of our sword domain, Shi country, and Meng country, there are more than 10 spirit stone veins. However, because of the protection of the Dao sect's formation, it is not easy to find them. In the previous battles, we spent some effort on them, but the results were minimal. Moreover, Sword Realm did not lack spirit stones at that time, so who would care about them? However, it's different now. Sword Realm's spirit stones are about to dry up. The spirit stone veins at the border of Sword Realm have become our savior. Oh. The purpose of this battle is to steal these spirit stone veins. Fan Mingyuan suddenly realized. The attacks and killings are all just a pretense. If Senior Fan understands it this way, then it's possible. LV Ruochang and Fan Mingyuan's conversation spread throughout Lake Chui, so all the swordsmen could hear it clearly. Many people had the same look of realization as Fan Mingyuan at this moment. What about the illusory sword formation of the sword catacomb? Fan Kuiyuan asked curiously. This has nothing to do with snatching the spirit stone mine, right? He. Not only can we kill off cultivators, we can also snatch the spirit stone mine. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone? Lu Ruochang said with a chuckle. Fine. These things are too complicated. I really can't understand them. Whatever LV Jianyu says, I'll do it. Fan Mingyuan turned to look at the swordsman and smiled bitterly. The other swordsmen are probably the same as me. Perhaps this is the reason why the teachers didn't make it clear. I didn't mean to keep it a secret. LV Ruochang shook his head. This matter is very important. The fewer people who know about it, the better. Yes, I know. Fan Mingyuan waved his hand. Elder Qi, are you saying that the Dao sect's cultivators are sending disciples to protect the spirit stone mine? Exactly. Lu Ruochang nodded. The cultivators of the sword domain have been pressuring the Dao sect cultivators. They have clearly sensed danger. The spirit stone mine is even more important to them, so they have to increase their vigilance. However, they don't know that the sword domain's goal is the spirit stone mine. They want to send reinforcements, but they are afraid that we know the location of the spirit stone mine. They don't want to attract our attention, so they are fearless and mysterious. To put it bluntly, they are not even worth a single spirit stone. How should we deal with them? I will listen to LV Genio's orders. I dare not. Besides, the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and the Taiching sect were in the same place. Naturally, they could no longer use the drifting cloud flying boat. The 10 disciples flew together with the remaining 7 disciples of the Taiching sect. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect flew faster than the disciples of the Taiching sect. Xiaohua didn't notice it at first, but after flying for an hour, he finally came to his senses and nodded to himself. The Imperial Thunder sect's cultivation method is lightning cultivation. Although the lightning cultivation method has already changed to the lightning escape technique, the various cultivation methods derived from the lightning escape technique are still effective. When the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples practice cultivation methods, they naturally practice their flying techniques extremely well. Cui Hongshen and the others naturally noticed it. The uneasiness in their hearts when they saw the disciples of the Taiching sect gradually lessened, and a trace of pride appeared on their faces. Unfortunately, this thunder escape technique needs the help of external objects, especially the inner elixir of the Thunder Beast. The inner elixir of 2 yin and yang attributes is used to create the power of thunder and then turn into the thunder escape technique. This is also the reason why the Imperial Thunder sect recruits disciples with thunder attribute physiques. Unfortunately, a single thunder attribute can only touch the edge of the thunder escape technique. If the thunder escape technique is mastered, it is still far from enough. Moreover, I don't have a thunder attribute physique. With the help of the Phoenix celestial body, I embedded the 2 inner elixirs of the Thunder Beast into the celestial body and refined the thunder escape technique to the realm of thunder escape technique. If I didn't witness the vision of Shueishua's foundation establishment, how could I have such an opportunity? However, I'm at a loss as to how others can cultivate this imperial lightning travel technique. After all, they either can't embed the inner elixir into the celestial body, or they already have a thunder attribute physique. How they use the inner elixir is different. Let's not talk about others. The great divine ability that was given to Xiang Zhili, the thunder escape technique, is the most suitable. He was born from the inner elixir of a male thunder beast, so using the inner elixir of a female thunder beast would make it easier. But how to do it is still very troublesome. Thinking up to here, a bright light flashed through Xiaohua's mind. It was a great merit he made when he first entered the Imperial Thunder sect. Thunder Devouring Bead. That's right, it's really that item. Xiaohua's eyes showed a trace of understanding. This item is not only the nemesis of all the Imperial Thunder sect's formations, but also the beginning and end of thunder. Didn't they see the image of the founder of the Imperial Thunder sect, Daoist Master Qian Yun, in the main hall of the Thunder Palace? He was enlightened by comprehending the Thunder Bead and founded the Imperial Thunder sect. Because of this, he ascended. If I can comprehend this item, wouldn't I be able to master the Thunder Escape technique? Sigh, what a pity. The Thunder Devouring Bead is the treasure of the Imperial Thunder sect. Ever since I took it out of my space, it has disappeared without a trace. How could Daoist Master Qian Lei let me comprehend it? It seems that everything depends on fate. Right, what about Qian Qinghua? This guy hibernated and never appeared again. It's been dozens of years, why haven't I seen any traces of him? I'm afraid he has met with disaster. While Xiaohua's thoughts were running wild, they traveled for another half a day. During this half a day, they actually didn't see any traces of sword cultivators. However, the foothills under their feet were covered with more and more snow, and even the chirping of birds and the language of beasts were rare. Clearly, this place was very remote. Fellow Taoists, we will reach our destination in another half a day. Seeing that the journey was safe, Feng Yuan's vigilance also weakened. Seeing that flying was very boring, he laughed and said loudly. His voice was not soft, and the snow on the mountain wall was disturbed. At the peak, first, a palm-sized snowflake fell. Then, as the snowflake fell, more and more snowflakes fell. Not long after, an overwhelming amount of snow fell from the sky like a collapsing mountain. The disciples of the Tai Ching sect and the Imperial Lightning sect were flying between two tall mountains. The snow on top of the canyon was extremely powerful, and it covered the entire canyon. Everyone's divine sense swept over and saw that the snowflakes were like dust, and the accumulated snow was like a tide, covering half of the sky. Ah! Snow, avalanche. Feng Yuan was shocked. He really didn't expect that just one sentence from him would cause such a big trouble. He had heard about this avalanche from the guards of Sky Patrol City, but he never thought that he would actually encounter one. Quickly fly. At this moment, no one dared to hesitate. No one wanted to fight against the heavenly might. Although the avalanche was still very far away, it was still an aurora after all. If they were really buried by the snow, even if they were Foundation establishment cultivators, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had lost all face. Surging like waves, falling like a mountain peak. Although this small amount of snow is very light and humble, when there is a lot of it, it actually has such great power. Heaven and earth are so mysterious, any inconspicuous place can be a reference for us cultivators. Xiaohua unhurriedly flew behind everyone, allowing the snowflakes to hit his face like white mist. He released his divine sense and carefully observed the gradual formation of the avalanche. It gradually grew from small to large, causing him to sigh with emotion in his heart. Chapter 23:14. Although the avalanche was very powerful, covering half of the canyon, and the rumbling sounds echoed in the canyon, everyone was still cultivators, and most of them were Foundation establishment cultivators. They had already escaped from the canyon before the avalanche hit them. Feng Yuan smiled bitterly, and this time he lowered his voice. Captain Chui, it's all because of my carelessness, let's not talk about it now. Chui Hongshan seemed to have thought of something, and quickly lowered his voice, let's leave quickly. Also, it's best to take a detour. Yes. That's right. Feng Yuan's face turned cold, and he came to a realization. He released his divine sense and looked around carefully, then he asked, Captain Chui, how do you think we should take a detour? Captain you can decide. Chui Hongshan said humbly, after all, Captain He is my senior brother. All right. Feng Yuan knew this was not the time to be humble, so he waved his hand and flew towards another direction along the foothills. After waiting for the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples to fly away for a while, a small human head suddenly popped out from the clean rock wall that had just experienced the avalanche. That human head had a small nose and small eyes like a child's. The avalanche actually happened here. That human head mumbled in a low voice, and then jumped out from the rock wall. It was a dwarf who was less than 2 feet tall. That dwarf's nose twitched a few times, and a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. Cultivator. Haha, there's actually a cultivator here. I found the cultivator's whereabouts. After speaking, the small eyes blinked a few times in joy, and with a stomp of his foot, his body once again disappeared into the rock wall, and just like Xiaohua's earth escape technique, he chased after the Imperial Thunder sect disciples. How would the Imperial Thunder sect disciples know that their whereabouts had already been discovered by the dwarf? Over there, they were still extremely careful in concealing their whereabouts, and constantly changing their direction, so that their goal of heading towards Jin Quan Mountain would not be exposed. Another 2 days passed, and just as everyone was about to fly towards Jin Quan Mountain under He Fong Yuan's lead, there was a rumbling sound in front of them, and the ground was shaking. Because of He Fong Yuan and the other Tai Ching sect disciples, Xiao Hua was too lazy to release his Buddha sense. Now that he felt it at the same time as everyone else, he immediately released his divine sense. Seeing the situation over there, he was stunned, and then a trace of joy appeared. A few miles ahead to the left, there were more than 20 beast cultivators who had turned into birds. They were circling in the air and attacking the cultivators who were trapped in the air. Below the cultivators, there were more than a dozen giants who were dozens of feet tall. They held huge spiked clubs in their hands and waved them in the air. As for the besieged cultivators, there were about 40 of them. They all wore different Taoist robes and were clearly from different sections. Although these cultivators activated their magic artifacts and fought with all their might, their speed could not compare to the beast cultivators. Not only could their magic artifacts not hit the vital parts of the beast cultivators, many times, they were forced to fall down by the beast cultivators, and they looked very miserable. As for the bird cultivators, although there were fewer of them, their attack power seemed to be on par with the cultivators. However, they only surrounded and pressured the cultivators, not allowing them to escape. They even forced the cultivators to fall into the giants' attack range. Looking at the ground, there were several corpses, and they were all badly mutilated. Obviously, they were all done by the giants' terrifying spiked clubs. Seeing such a pressing situation, Cui Hongshan hesitated. The cultivators who were trapped in the air by the beast cultivators and giants were all Foundation establishment cultivators, but even they were in such a miserable state, running for their lives, and even struggling at death's door. How could he and the other Imperial Thunder sect disciples be able to get away with it? Not only him, even He Fong Yuan was hesitating. He was different from Cui Hongshan. He had already lost 3 Tai Ching sect disciples, and if he got involved in this killing situation, he might suffer even more losses. Moreover, the beast cultivators and giants did not seem to have noticed their arrival. If they escaped now, it was still not too late. The scene was unusually quiet, and it was truly a torture. The Imperial Thunder sect disciples involuntarily looked at Xiao Hua. "Damn it, why are you looking at me?" Xiao Hua was somewhat angry in his heart. He really didn't want to reveal too much of his strength in front of others. However, he also knew that these 20 or so bird cultivators and a dozen giants were absolutely not something that these disciples could deal with. He really had no choice but to take action. He Fong Yuan was naturally astute. When he saw Cui Hongshan and the others looking at Xiao Hua, he immediately understood. Of course, he also looked at Xiao Hua. Seeing He Fong Yuan looking at Xiao Hua, the Tai Ching sect disciples also looked at Xiao Hua. In an instant, the gazes of the 2 sects disciples fell on Xiao Hua. "Go!" Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, but he could not show it on his face. He waved his hand and said only one word, then slowly flew forward. "Go!" Cui Hongshan's heart relaxed. He waved his hand and said loudly, "No matter which sect's disciples are from, since they are Tao sect cultivators, they are our fellow disciples. We cannot let them fight alone. Yes, we will follow Captain Cui's orders." Dui Chi Meng and the others replied loudly. With Xiao Hua's guarantee, their hearts tightened. Seeing the Imperial Thunder sect disciples so valiant, the Tai Ching sect disciples felt slightly guilty. They immediately felt that they were small, so they also shouted, "That's right, what joy is there in life, what fear is there in death? If we don't take action now, we will have inner demons in the future. How can our cultivation progress?" Kill! The group of Tai Ching sect disciples and Imperial Thunder sect disciples all flew to the front and actually surpassed Xiao Hua. They charged towards the group that was already in a precarious situation. This is great. At this time, the besieged Dao sect cultivators naturally discovered that there were reinforcements. Their hearts felt incomparably warm, as if they had encountered a sunny day amidst a gloomy rain. When the bird cultivators heard the commotion, they were first startled. However, when they saw that it was only a dozen or so Foundation establishment cultivators, their hearts relaxed. They each opened their mouths and cried out, then beat their wings and did their best to kill the besieged cultivators. Attack! Cui Hongshen and the others did not dare to be negligent. They flew high to avoid coming into contact with the giants on the ground. They had already taken out their respective magic tools and attacked the bird cultivators. The bird cultivators' figures were very fast. They beat their wings and flew up, easily dodging the magic tools. Then, they expanded the range of their attacks and surrounded the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples who came as reinforcements. There were only 20 or so bird cultivators, but they actually dared to deal with 50 cultivators. The gap in the encirclement was definitely much larger. The 40 or so cultivators who were previously besieged saw the gap in the encirclement expand, and their faces revealed joy. They knew that they had a chance to escape. However, they could only watch. No one could really escape. Chapter 23:15. But just as these cultivators turned around and were about to attack the bird cultivators with their magic artifacts, a voice called out, "Senior Brother Jiang, I'm really sorry." As the voice rang out, an early-stage Foundation establishment disciple with a well-built body wearing the Daoist robes of the Nanming sect broke away from the group of cultivators. He charged through the gap between two bird cultivators and flew into the distance. "Xing Shuo! You!" roared a mid-Foundation establishment Nanming sect disciple. Just as he was about to rebuke Xing Shuo, however, a few more disciples suddenly flew out from the group of Lightning Rider sect disciples who had been brandishing their dermic artifacts to meet up with the Lightning Rider sect disciples. They didn't even bother to greet them. They were even worse than Xing Shuo. You wait. Cui Hongshen was stupefied. He really hadn't expected that when he and the others came to help, these disciples would actually abandon them and flee by themselves. The escape of these disciples was not a big deal, but it tugged at the last heartstrings in the hearts of the cultivators. Even the cultivators with the most solid hearts were moved. Everyone had to face a test in this life and death situation, whether it was for themselves or their conscience. Xiao Hua looked at them coldly, and then at the beast cultivators who were surrounding them but not attacking. He already understood that this was done by the beast cultivators on purpose. He Feng Yuan's earlier conjecture that beast cultivators and weapon cultivators were brainless was instantly dispelled. Stop right there. The captains from the various sects were all furious and hurriedly shouted. Unfortunately, it would have been better if they hadn't shouted. Once they shouted, even more cultivators took the chance to escape. In just a moment, nearly 20 cultivators had already escaped through the gap between the bird cultivators' encirclement. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the group of beast cultivators surrounded the remaining 40 or so cultivators. In other words, the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples had come to replace these cultivators, and these cultivators had replaced the Imperial Thunder sect and Tai Ching sect disciples, and escaped. At this moment, a Tai Ching sect disciple couldn't take it anymore and glared at Xiao Hua. His eyes were filled with hatred, and he didn't even greet Xiao Hua as he flew towards a gap that seemed to be right in front of Xiao Hua. However, just as he flew out of the gap, Xiao Hua said urgently, "Quickly come back." Only a fool would reply. The disciple's figure passed by the bird cultivator and he was extremely happy. Now that he had the time to spare, he sneered back. Unfortunately, just as he spoke, the four-eared beast cultivator on his left suddenly flashed and dashed toward his back like a bolt of black lightning. The bird cultivator's flying speed was simply too fast and he wasn't far from the Tai Ching sect disciple. Although the Tai Ching sect disciple was extremely vigilant, he still only noticed the bird cultivator when he was a few feet away from him. Whoosh! The bird cultivator's wings suddenly swept out like an extremely hard artifact towards the Tai Ching disciple's neck. The Tai Ching sect disciple had already activated his magic treasure and attacked without hesitation. Wang, the sound was precisely the shape of a plum blossom. Flower petals spread out from the magic treasure and enveloped the bird cultivator who was about to pounce over. The bird cultivator didn't dodge at all. With a muffled zzz sound, the flower petals exploded around the bird cultivator and completely enveloped him. A trace of joy flashed through the Tai Ching sect disciple's eyes and he was about to use his magic power to fly away again. The bird cultivator, who was originally a bit crooked from the flower petals, suddenly opened his mouth and his body swayed even more strangely. He immediately broke through the magic treasure's attack and instantly closed in on the Tai Ching sect disciple. At the same time, his beak-like mouth suddenly pecked forward and chiseled into the Tai Ching sect disciple's shoulder. The beast cultivator's beak broke through the Tai Ching sect disciple's defensive yellow talisman and tore off a large chunk of flesh from the disciple's shoulder, revealing the pale white bone inside. Since the Tai Ching sect disciple was injured, his body was already crooked and he slowly fell from the sky. He was barely able to stabilize himself in midair. At this moment, all the cultivators who were looking at this disciple had a trace of pity in their eyes. They actually couldn't bear to see him die. Bam! With a loud bang, a huge mace appeared behind the Tai Ching sect's disciple, causing a gust of wind to blow as it appeared behind him. The Tai Ching sect disciple's defensive light that had been bitten through by the bird cultivator was immediately annihilated the moment it touched the spiked club. The spiked club hit the Tai Ching sect disciple's head almost without any resistance. Like a watermelon being smashed, red and white, a disgusting smell of blood burst out. All of this happened in just a few breaths of time. Xiaohua had time to give a warning and Fang Yuan didn't even have time to shout angrily before the Tai Ching sect disciple died. Their broken corpses fell to the ground, mixing with the dead disciples from before. Hiss! Everyone from the Tai Ching sect and Imperial Thunder sect sucked in a breath of cold air. They finally understood why so many cultivators were surrounded but none dared to escape. However, before these people could recover from their shock, another strange thing happened. Opposite the dead Tai Ching sect disciple, another Imperial Thunder sect disciple also quickly rushed towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. This disciple, is he sick? The cultivators were stunned. After all, although this Imperial Thunder sect disciple's flying speed was fast, it was only slightly faster than the Tai Ching sect disciple. It was far from surpassing the flying speed of a bird cultivator. However, the Imperial Thunder sect disciple actually had a puzzled expression. That's right, it was puzzled, not astonishment, grief, or any other expression. Because this person was none other than Xiaohua. Xiaohua's figure flew towards the gap between the two bird cultivators. His choice of location was extremely good, it was right between the two. The two beast cultivators naturally stared at the scene in front of them. When they saw Xiaohua flying, they also followed him. However, after flying for a while, they stopped again after flying for less than half a foot. This was because they both saw that the other party had already moved. Of course, they stopped at the same time. When they saw each other stop, they flew up at the same time. However, after flying for a foot, they seemed to have a tacit understanding and stopped at the same time. They waited for the other to attack while they guarded the encirclement. Damn it, is this an act? If Xiao Hua wasn't a genuine cultivator, the cultivators in the encirclement would have suspected that Xiao Hua was friends with these two bird cultivators. Ga. At this time, the two bird cultivators were also angry and seemed to be criticizing each other. At the same time, they no longer hesitated and flapped their wings, attacking Xiao Hua from the left and right. Ouch! Xiao Hua looked as panicked as the Tai Ching sect disciple. He was very afraid of the bird cultivators who suddenly closed in on him. He didn't even take out his magic tool. With a wave of his hand, dozens of fireball talismans were shot out. Rumble. These fireball talismans were actually of the highest quality. They set off a heat wave that soared to the sky. They were even more powerful than the magic tools of the Tai Ching sect disciple. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's opponents were bird cultivators who were famous for their body techniques. This top-grade fireball talisman only managed to burn a few pieces of the bird cultivator's feathers. Not only was it unable to kill them, it had even angered them. Ga, two extremely angry bird cries resounded. The two bird cultivators flew out from the flames and pecked at Xiao Hua's shoulders like lightning. Xiao Hua's figure rapidly descended, wanting to dodge the attacks of the two bird cultivators. Below him, a giant also raised its wolf-tooth club, preparing to attack Xiao Hua's butt. Serves him right. This was the thought of all the cultivators except for the Imperial Thunder sect disciple and He Fang Yuan. Even the Tai Ching sect disciples felt a trace of satisfaction in their hearts. In their eyes, the initial stage foundation establishment Xiao Hua was already a dead man. Facing two bird cultivators and a giant, and falling into such a passive situation, even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to escape, right? Just as everyone's thoughts became active again, retracting their gazes from Xiao Hua's body and looking at the gap next to Xiao Hua after he lured away the two bird cultivators, a golden light flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately, they heard Xiao Hua shout, "Damn it, you dare to hit my butt. I'd like to see if your strength is greater or mine." Immediately after, in front of everyone's eyes, Xiao Hua suddenly took out an ordinary stick that was 2 feet long and as thick as the mouth of a bowl. He actually calmly twirled the stick in his hand in an extremely gaudy manner before smashing it towards the incomparably huge mace. Woo! This was the sound of the giant's arm, which was as thick as an adult's waist, swinging the wolf-tooth club. This whistling sound was so loud that it covered all the movements in the surroundings. Even when the giant stepped on the ground trembled slightly. Naturally, the sound of the wind on Xiao Hua's stick was also concealed. Or perhaps Xiao Hua's stick didn't make any sound at all. When the group of cultivators heard the sound of the wind and looked at Xiao Hua again, they couldn't understand how the two bird cultivators suddenly fell from the sky. Although they didn't seem to have any injuries, in their divine senses, the two bird cultivators were completely dead. What is going on? While they were bewildered, He Fang Yuan's eyes shined with extraordinary splendor. It was not that he didn't have confidence in Xiao Hua, just like now, when Xiao Hua was competing with the giant in terms of strength, he firmly believed that Xiao Hua wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But when fighting with the two bird cultivators earlier, or trying to escape from the two bird cultivators, he didn't have any confidence in Xiao Hua. Naturally, He Fang Yuan had been staring at Xiao Hua all along. He had an involuntary conviction in his heart. He firmly believed that Xiao Hua wasn't a cultivator who would run away without a fight. Sure enough, when He Fang Yuan's eyelids slightly blinked, that golden light came from Xiao Hua's hand. He simply couldn't see where this golden light came from. It was as if it was just the outline of a flood dragon, and with just a flash of golden light, it passed through the necks of the two arrogant bird cultivators. Immediately after, the two bird cultivators fell from the sky without even making a sound. Chapter 23:16 However, He Feng Yuan could clearly see that in the short time the golden light disappeared and the staff was raised. Xiaohua reached out and took away the storage pouches on the waists of the two beast cultivators. Dang! A deafening sound resounded. That intense fluctuation came from the place where the staff and the mace collided. Just like the fireball talisman that Xiaohua threw out earlier, it instantly washed away all the snow and other objects within a radius of 6 meters. Immediately after, that fluctuation was like the surging waves of the sea, rushing out in all directions. In the air, whether it was the Dao sect cultivators or the beast cultivators, they were all unable to stand steadily from the impact of this sound wave. Even the Imperial Thunder sect's Qi refinement disciples and the two beast cultivators' bodies swayed a few times before falling from the air. Ha ha ha! Xiaohua's loud laughter resounded again after the sound wave. Good strength, good strength. Take another strike from this young master's staff. As he spoke, Xiaohua's figure flew up once again. That long staff streaked across the sky, emitting a whimper sound, and smashed towards the giant who was standing there foolishly. His arm was already completely numb, and his mace was also twisted in the middle. Looking at the giant's feet again, that pair of large feet had already sunk into the ground. It was actually smashed into the ground by Xiaohua. Dang! Another sound resounded. This sound was clearly not as powerful as the first one, but it still lingered in everyone's ears. But this time, that giant's mace was completely bent, it was simply unable to take shape. Even the giant's arms were trembling, powerlessly hanging down. His face was pale, and his eyes flashed with fear. Take another strike from this young master's staff. Xiaohua was unforgiving, the staff was lifted up again as if it was light. Something shocking happened. Before Xiaohua could lift up the staff, that giant actually pulled out his feet from the ground. Without saying anything, he dragged the mace and flew towards the distance. That large foot smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Don't run! Take another strike from this young master's staff. Xiaohua's figure suddenly flew up, as if he was chasing after that giant. However, with a slight sway of his figure, he actually arrived at the nearest giant and smashed down with his long staff. That giant was still puzzled. He didn't know what the escaping giant meant, but Xiaohua's staff hit his forehead. Needless to say, the giant raised his mace and charged forward. It was simply a replica of the previous one. Another huge tremor, another wave of sound was set off, and everyone was thrown into the air. What was different from before was that this giant didn't wait for Xiaohua to pick up the long rod again. He dragged the spiked club back and turned around, catching up with the giant that had fled earlier. That graceful turn of his body. TSK, it was simply too vivid. It did not matter if this giant ran away. Just like the Dao sect disciple who ran away first, the thought of running away immediately rose in the hearts of all the giants. They did not wait for Xiaohua to fly towards them. Instead, they took the initiative and carried the wolf-tooth club on their shoulders without any hesitation. Then, they spread their big feet, which were rarely seen in the Dawn Rain continent, and fled without a trace. The bird cultivators who had barely stabilized themselves in the air were stunned. They also seemed to have woken up from a dream. They had just woken up from the destruction of two bird cultivators. A bird cultivator cried out. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky and charged towards the clouds. When the other bird cultivators saw this, they also cried out and flapped their wings, wanting to fly away with that bird cultivator. You can stay here. A trace of fierceness flashed through Xiaohua's eyes. His figure also flew, and he was actually much faster than the bird cultivators. He charged towards the bird cultivator who had just killed the Tai Ching sect disciple. That bird cultivator was greatly alarmed. Without any hesitation, he charged towards Xiaohua, extending his unusually sharp beak. However, just as he extended his beak, he seemed to have realized something. His wings flapped, and his figure quickly turned around, drawing an arc in the air as he tried to escape again. At this moment, Xiaohua's figure was only about 3 meters away from him. At such a close distance, how could Xiaohua let him escape? The long staff in his hand danced again, and like a jade pillar supporting the heavens, it stabbed straight towards the bird cultivator's abdomen. Seeing that it was about to hit the bird cultivator's body suddenly emitted a tricolored brilliance. The bird cultivator's flying speed suddenly increased, and the distance between them immediately increased again. Damn it, if it's half a foot longer, I'll stop. Xiaohua cursed angrily. Just as he was about to activate the hibernating lightning escape, something strange happened. That 2-foot-long staff suddenly grew half a foot. This. Xiaohua was shocked. Of course, even if the staff grew half a foot longer, it still wouldn't be able to hit the bird cultivator. This half a foot that suddenly grew was not seen by anyone. Hit, in a hurry, Xiaohua didn't have time to check. He activated the hibernating lightning escape and suddenly sped up. The long staff suddenly struck out, hitting the bird cultivator's abdomen. Pooh, a mouthful of blood was spat out. The bird cultivator screamed miserably, curled up his wings, and fell from Xiaohua's side. Xiaohua casually took the bird cultivator's storage pouch. Chapter 23:17. Junior Brother Xiao, are you hurt? Ming Mao asked with concern. I'm fine. Xiaohua waved his hand and took out an elixir. He put it into his mouth without even looking at it. Then he said while gasping, I'm exhausted, and my magic power is also exhausted. I need to rest for a while. Then he looked at Zhenhua and said angrily, Nephew Zhen, why don't you come and support your uncle? Yes, I will go now. Zhenhua stared blankly for a moment, then his face was filled with joy. He hurriedly flew over and firmly supported Xiaohua. At this moment, the rest of the people came to themselves. The shock on their faces was replaced by respect. Then they heard a surprised voice, You are Xiaohua, the disciple of the Imperial Thunder faction who lifted the divine object from the sky at the Feather Immortal gathering of the Taiqing sect. Yes, it must be you. Yes, it's Xiaohua. I can't be wrong. Another cultivator also yelled with elation, I also participated in the Feather Immortal gathering, and I was stunned by fellow Daoist Zhao's divine power. Who would have thought that we would be reunited again after so many years? Fellow cultivator Zhao's divine power showed off again and saved us. Xiaohua was stunned. He looked up and saw 2 surprised faces. Then he looked at their robes. One of them was from the Kunlun faction, and the other was from the Utopia faction. However, these 2 people's faces were unfamiliar to Xiaohua. He couldn't remember them at all. After all, the Imperial Thunder faction wasn't in the same group as these 2 factions at the Feather Immortal gathering. Xiaohua didn't fight with them in the second stage. Fellow cultivator Xiao, you were famous at the Feather Immortal gathering. The disciple of the Kunlun faction flew over and said while cupping his hands, I'm Kuxingxi from the Kunlun faction. Fellow cultivator Xiao, you don't remember me, but I have a deep impression of you. Back then, you made a name for yourself in one fell swoop. This Ko is truly envious. I'm Yang Fengqing from the Utopia faction. The disciple of the Utopia faction said while cupping his hands, Fellow cultivator Xiao, thank you for saving my life. Oh, you are from the Feather Immortal gathering. Xiaohua thought to himself. Then, he weakly cupped his hands and laughed in a low and deep voice, so it's an old acquaintance of mine. What a coincidence. It wasn't a life-saving grace, it was just to save himself. Alas, it's actually a fluke. I'm just a paper tiger. If those giants and beast cultivators hadn't been scared away by me, I would have been in your care. Ha, junior brother Xiao has already done his best. He Feng Yuan also flew over and said with a smile, but with junior brother Xiao's killing of 3 beast cultivators, they already have no way to trap us. As long as we work together to fight them, we will definitely be able to escape. Next, He Feng Yuan cupped his fists and smiled at Ku Xingxi and Yang Fangqing. Tai Ching sect's He Feng Yuan greets the 2 senior brothers. Back then at the Feather Immortal Assembly, I had the chance to meet the 2 of you. He, hello, senior brother He. Ku Xingxi and Yang Fangqing hurriedly returned the greeting. Back then, we parted ways at Tai Ching sect's Hao domain. Senior brother He was the first Feather Immortal Assembly disciple to reach Foundation establishment. We have been envious of you for a long time. Hearing this, a trace of shame appeared on He Feng Yuan's face. He glanced at Xiao Hua and smiled. This foolish brother was lucky enough to be a step ahead in the Foundation establishment stage, but that is all in the future. Now look at the difference between me and junior brother Xiao. It is really 1,000 miles. Ha, senior brother He, you should compare yourself to us. Chapter 23:18. Yes or no? Do I need to tell you? Xiao Hua replied snappily, you haven't answered my question yet. However, Xiao Hua's heart was also happy. Wishful Staff, this name was really easy to come up with. It was a gift from the heavens. He didn't say it out loud, but it actually sounded good. You haven't said what the question is. How can I answer? Cui Hongshan replied bluntly. Pfft. It was none other than Zhenhua, who couldn't help but laugh. That. I'm scared. Zhenhua whispered, I'm scared that the giant will come again. You're that scared. Why don't you show me how scared you are? If you're scared and don't come out, I'll drag you to the giant 20 miles away. Xiao Hua scolded, you're so young and you haven't learned anything. You only know how to lie. Yes. Zhenhua said in panic, I was wrong. Uncle Xiao, don't be angry. TSK, why are you venting your anger on a child? Cui Hongshan couldn't figure out whether Xiao Hua was scolding him or not. He could only reply, how do you know there's a giant 20 miles away? I remember Master said that you used the jade Kirin fruit to stimulate your divine sense. There's no reason for your divine sense to be farther than mine. Why should I tell you the reason? I'm lying, okay? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes, you haven't answered my question yet. What's the question? Cui Hongshan was a little anxious. Those disciples of the Extreme Happiness Faction, Kunlun Sect, Immortal Ascension Sect, and Blue Li Sect. How will they be dealt with? Xiao Hua asked in a low voice. This. Cui Hongshan glanced at Zhenhua and said, if we weren't there, they ran away. As long as the disciples of the 4 sects don't investigate, who will know? But these 10 people ran away in front of us. The disciples of the 4 sects didn't dare to cover it up. They could only report it directly. Otherwise, they would also be punished. The fate of these 10 disciples was already decided the moment they ran away. They're bound to die. The 4 sects absolutely can't tolerate them running away when they're fighting. Especially, with the reinforcements of the Imperial Thunder Sect and Tai Ching Sect. I understand. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. These people really deserve to die. Did they not think about it? We risked our lives to come here, yet they actually hardened their hearts and fled. Alas, the test of life and death is too great. Cui Hongshan sighed. Even I am a little hesitant, let alone them. Although the captains of the four sects didn't say anything, it seems that they will only report this matter to the higher-ups and won't take any other measures. If those disciples manage to escape alive, they can only become rogue cultivators and face the joint pursuit of the three cultivation kingdoms. Xiao Hua nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Cui Hongshan also flew up carefully. From time to time, he would vigilantly release his spiritual force to prevent the bird cultivator from attacking again. Fellow Daoist Cui, you don't need to be so careful. The beast cultivator and giant have long been scared out of their wits. They won't chase after you. Xiao Hua couldn't help but remind Cui Hongshan when he saw how cautious he was. Better safe than sorry. Cui Hongshan laughed coldly. However, it was clear that he had relaxed after this. He only flew slowly and did not extend his consciousness too far. It was a pity. Although Xiao Hua's Buddhist awareness was powerful, he was still careless. Just as they flew away for less than a cigarette, the dwarf who had chased after them once again emerged from the place where he had killed the bird cultivator. Hiss, the dwarf sucked in a breath of cold air. The small head that had just emerged immediately shrank back. It wasn't until a long time later that he tremblingly revealed his small nose. He vigorously sniffed a few times before revealing half of his body again. He looked left and right. Looking at his appearance, he was afraid that if there was even the slightest sign of trouble, he would escape into the ground and escape. However, apart from the sound of the wind, the snow, and the smell of blood that lingered for a long time, there really wasn't any other danger. The dwarf finally jumped out of the ground and carefully looked around. He sniffed again and looked in the direction that Xiao Hua and the others had flown in. His face was full of panic and hesitation. Finally, the dwarf decisively turned around and escaped into the ground, heading into the distance. In the end, this cowardly dwarf did not dare to continue to chase down. Quanjin Mountain was not far away. However, after flying for half a day, a huge mountain range could be seen in front of them. This mountain range was not tall, but it was extremely large and covered an extremely wide area. The mountain range was covered in ice for thousands of miles. It was as smooth as a mirror and there were no spirit grasses or spirit trees to be seen. Apart from cultivators, there were absolutely no other signs of human habitation. Even birds that spread their wings and flew would not come here. This is Quanjin Mountain? Xiao Hua's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the endless mountain range in the distance. He unconsciously frowned. This situation, apart from the ice and snow, was not much different from Qishu mountain range. Even that cold place was extremely similar. Let's go. Cui Hongshan did not say anything else. He directly flew to the front and took out the team leader's token. He carefully looked at it and raised his head to look again. He waved his hand and flew towards a certain place in the mountain range. Xiao Hua's Buddhist awareness also saw that far away in the mountain range, Tai Ching sect's disciples were also flying up under Hifang Yuan's lead. It seemed that their direction was not the same as Imperial Thunder sects. Sure enough, Cui Hongshan brought Xiao Hua and the others to another place in the mountain range. When they reached the mountain range, Xiao Hua looked around. This was actually a continuous stretch of green pine forest. Those green pine trees were over 100 feet tall. The crisp pine needles were condensed into a layer of sparkling ice, swaying in the breeze. Occasionally, there would be pine branches that could not withstand the pressure of the snow falling down, making a silent sound. The place where they landed, apart from a thick layer of snow, there were also some rotten withered branches. How could one tell that this was a spirit stone mine? Xiaohua naturally understood that this was definitely a concealment formation. However, he released his divine sense and looked for a long time but did not see any clues. He unconsciously shook his head, sigh, there are indeed many experts in this world. This young master's formation skills can be considered to have some accomplishments, but I can't even see a little bit of it. Flying down from the mountain range, Cui Hongshan activated his magic power. The captain's token emitted a faint brilliance, and a fist-sized brilliance flew out from the token. Then, it transformed into a sparrow-shaped bird. It flapped its wings and flew into the depths of the mountain forest. Everyone did not say anything. They all followed the little bird and gradually went deeper into the forest. That light was also strange. It did not fly high at all. It only flew slowly between the pine trees that were not too dense, like a fluttering butterfly. After flying for a little more than half a day, that light stopped. It suddenly flew several feet and disappeared into a pine tree that was only the size of a person. Chapter 23:19. Ha! Is it here? Xiaohua was not in a hurry. He looked at the pine tree and used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. Zhen Minghui and the others were also puzzled. It seemed that there was no fluctuation of magic power in the surroundings. When Xiaohua and the others saw Cui Hongshan's movements, they suddenly realized. Cui Hongshan walked to the pine tree and gestured up and down. His body flew up about 2 zhang and extended a finger, pointing at an inconspicuous spot on the tree. However, there was no movement from him at all. But Cui Hongshan was not surprised. His body landed again. This time, he actually lowered his body and pointed at the spot opposite the tree 3 inches from the ground. Then, he left the pine tree again and waited quietly for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Then, he flew up again and pointed at the tree spots high up. After Cui Hongshan pointed at it 3 times, he flew to the side of the pine tree again. This was different again. It was actually 3 tree spots in a triangular shape. There was nothing special at all. Cui Hongshan pointed 4 times. When Cui Hongshan flew to another place, Xiaohua simply stopped looking. Needless to say, there was some mechanism on the pine tree. It was not set up by magic. What was the use of looking at such a complicated method? But the strange thing was, when Xiaohua released his divine sense and carefully looked under the pine tree, where was there any trace of magic? There wasn't even a single passageway or mechanism. Damn, this is really interesting. Xiaohua smiled and released his Buddhist sense. His Buddhist sense was still the best. Xiaohua finally found a trace of abnormality. But before he could take a closer look, Cui Hongshan smiled and said, "All right, let's go in." After speaking, Cui Hongshan's figure floated and entered first. Xiaohua looked up and saw that about 2 zhang above the pine tree, there was a hole the size of a person. It was like the pine tree's eye, looking at him with ridicule. Okay, Xiaohua did not look anymore. He withdrew his Buddhist sense and followed everyone into the hole. The inside of the tree hole was extremely dark. When his divine sense swept, the inner wall of the tree actually blocked everyone's divine sense. I'm afraid this isn't some ordinary pine tree. Xiaohua had already understood that if it wasn't a strange spiritual wood, it wouldn't be able to block his spiritual sense. Cui Hongshan led the way in front and kept flying downwards. After flying for thousands of feet, or even thousands of feet, a misty brilliance appeared in front of their eyes. It was the light of the bright flower stone. At this time, the space gradually became bigger. The entire downward passage was actually an inverted loophole. Oh my god, this is incredible. Xiaohua's divine sense slightly swept out, he was just as curious as everyone else. He couldn't help but secretly sigh in his heart, this spirit stone vein, is really a secret. It's so deep underground that it's thousands of feet deep, whose divine sense would be so bored to check under this desolate pine forest. It's no wonder the sword cultivators didn't notice it even though it was so close to Hing country. Who are you? An indescribably cold voice suddenly emerged from beneath Cui Hongshan's feet. Cui Hongshan immediately stopped descending and looked towards the direction of the voice. He saw that on the stone wall of the tunnel, there was a cave that was half the height of a person. A cultivator dressed in pitch-black clothes was sitting cross-legged there and asked him without raising his head. I'm Cui Hongshan, the captain of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. I'm leading my team of 10 people to Mount Quanjin to support the fellow cultivators from Sky Patrol City. Cui Hongshan saw that it was a cultivator in the middle stage of Foundation establishment. He didn't dare to hastily report his name and took out the captain's token. Oh, so it's a fellow cultivator from the Imperial Thunder Sect. That cultivator raised his head. His entire face was covered by a cloak. He stretched out his hand and said, I'm a disciple of Mount Quanjin Sky Patrol City. I thank the Imperial Thunder Sect for coming to help. In addition, since fellow cultivator Cui can come here, there must be a guide. However, there are rules. Captain Cui, please take out the token and check it. Of course, please. Cui Hongshan handed over the token, and the cultivator took it. He took out a magic weapon that looked like a ruler from his arms. He urged his spiritual power and placed it on the token. A yellow light flashed on the ruler, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, a thumb-sized ball flew out from the ruler. It paused for a moment, and then flew into Cui Hongshan's token. I, Mount Quanjin's imprint, have entered Captain Cui's token. When this matter is over, Captain Cui can use this imprint to return to Sky Patrol City. Sky Patrol City has nothing but gratitude. The cultivator clapped his hand and the token fell into Cui Hongshan's hand again. Captain Cui, please continue forward. According to the other disciples of Sky Patrol City, your Imperial Thunder Sect's other teams have arrived. The resting room of your Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples is arranged in the northwest area. You can go there with the disciples who welcome you. As for how to defend, how to guard, and how to fight, we'll have to wait for all the disciples to arrive before we can decide. Yes, I understand. Cui Hongshan took the token and kept it in his arms. He cupped his hands and flew down. Xiao Hua and the others followed closely behind him. Hee, such a mysterious arrangement in such a deep tunnel, I'm afraid it's not easy to be discovered by a sword cultivator, right? As long as we guard on time, we should be able to complete the task. Facing the enemy is nonsense. Xiao Hua laughed in his heart. He believed in his own vision. Even his Buddhist consciousness could not find the underground mineral vein, how could a sword cultivator know? This time, his first team had drawn a good lot. They would definitely not encounter such a dangerous situation like last time. After flying for another 100 feet, everyone's eyes were bright. They had reached the end of the tunnel. This was a space with a radius of several hundred feet. In this space, there were dozens of disciples in Sky Patrol City's city guard uniform. They held celestial devices and other items and were on guard. Before Xiao Hua and the others landed, the disciples' divine senses locked onto Xiao Hua and the others. When they saw the faces and robes of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples, they relaxed slightly. They also wanted to check the tokens. Xiao Hua took advantage of this time to look around. He saw that other than the tunnel where he and the others landed, there were 4 to 5 pitch-black holes above the space. It should be a tunnel that led to here from another direction. Sorry, everyone's tokens also need to be checked. After checking Cui Hongshan's captain token, another 9 city guards stepped forward and politely stretched out their hands. Sigh, it's really troublesome. Dui Ling muttered softly. Hee, I'll let this fellow from the Imperial Thunder sect know. The city guard in front of Dui Ling laughed and said, My Quanjin Mountain is a spirit stone mineral vein. It's not only extremely important to my Sky Patrol city, it's also crucial to the entire war. No matter how careful you are, you can't be too careful. Hee, I was just saying. Dui Ling laughed and took out the token. Xiaohua also took out the token cooperatively and handed it to the city guard. At the same time, he smiled and said, Just now, I saw Tai Ching Sect's captain he arrived first. I wonder where they are arranged. Oh. Tai Ching Sect. The city guard checked the token and laughed. I have been on duty this entire time and have not seen any Tai Ching Sect disciples. However, a small team from the Rock Borders sect came in earlier. Oh. Xiaohua raised his brows and said curiously, He Feng Yuan is right in front of us. Could it be that Quanjin Mountain has multiple entrances? Hee, fellow Daoist Xiao will be on duty in a few days, so I won't hide it from fellow Daoist. My Golden Spring Mountain has 8 such entrances, and each entrance has 4 to 6 tunnels that lead to the surface. Does your fellow Daoist from the Tai Ching sect know where they came from? However, the Tai Ching sect disciples seem to be arranged in the northwest region. You just have to go in and look for them. Yes, I understand. Xiaohua received the token and nodded in reply. After everyone's tokens were checked, a Qi refinement disciple walked over and respectfully led the way in front, bringing them to the northwest region to rest. Walking out of the space of the entrance, Xiaohua felt his vision suddenly become clear. The first thing he looked at was the top of his head. He saw that although there were no gloomy winter clouds above his head, nor was there any blue sky or white clouds, there was a layer of faint azure. There was a layer of fine light emitting from it, and it did not seem like a cave 10,000 feet below. Moreover, this azure sky above his head was extremely high. It seemed to be several hundred feet high, and there was no feeling of oppression. Xiaohua moved his gaze away from the top of his head and looked in front of him. It was another huge space. This space was not too flat, and there were some ravines and hills. It was somewhat similar to the mountains commonly seen in the country of Xi. What surprised Xiaohua the most was that above these ravines and hills, there were some green and bright colors. It was the color of Xiaoqiao and Xiaohua. It was really more lively than the spring gold mountain pine forest above his head. Looking at the space again, there were already many cultivators. Most of these cultivators were disciples of the Sky Patrol City, and most of these disciples were Qi refinement disciples. There were very few disciples above the Foundation establishment realm. Some of these disciples were in a hurry, flying in the space from a cave on one side of the space to another place. Some disciples seemed to be a little slow, or even slightly limited. As for the Foundation establishment disciples of the Sky Patrol City, they should be the disciples on duty, leading some Qi refinement disciples and cruising at the edge of the space. My goodness, is this the spirit stone vein? Xiaohua didn't dare to extend his divine sense too far, and only swept it to the left. The rich and familiar earth-type spiritual energy of heaven and earth filled the entire space. Taking a deep breath, he was able to feel the coolness of the spiritual energy in the air. It seems, this task is not as difficult as I thought. Xiaohua thought again, even if I am on duty here, I can still cultivate during normal times. In this place where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is rich, my cultivation will definitely improve faster. This young master needs a lot of spiritual qi of heaven and earth for cultivation. I'm afraid this spiritual qi is useless. Chapter 23:20. Thinking about it, Xiaohua could not help but feel a little regretful. He looked to the side of the space and saw the cave closest to him. It must be the entrance to the spirit stone vein. Thinking about the piles of spirit stones inside, Xiaohua's eyes lit up. It was a pity that the Sky Patrol City disciple who led Xiaohua and the others walked in front. Otherwise, Xiaohua would have gone forward to ask about the spirit stone vein. The arrival of Xiaohua and the others did not attract the attention of the Sky Patrol City disciples. It seemed that the number of Path Sect disciples had increased during this period of time. Just as the Sky Patrol City's disciple was about to lead Xiaohua and the others into a large cave, a loud noise came from a cave not far away from Xiaohua. Many of the disciples who were flying into the cave stopped and gave way to the noise. Then, a group of Sky Patrol City disciples who were only at level 3 or 4 of the Qi refining realm flew out of the cave. These disciples lined up neatly in rows of 5. Under the leadership of a 10th layer Qi refining disciple, they filed out of the cave. Xiaohua paused for a moment and watched like Cui Hongshan and the others. He waited until this group of disciples had completely flown out of the cave and into another cave before flying up again. Xiaohua saw clearly that there were more than 1,000 disciples in this group. Each disciple had a bulging storage bag on their waist. Moreover, these disciples' faces were full of fatigue as if they were extremely tired. I'll let you know. These are the disciples of our Sky Patrol City who are mining here. When the Qi refinement disciple saw that the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples had stopped, he did not urge them. He waited for them to fly up again before he introduced them with a smile. Half of the disciples recruited by the Sky Patrol City have to mine in the spirit stone veins. Only when they have accumulated enough spirit stones can they officially become the official disciples of the Sky Patrol City. These disciples have to hand over the ores they mine to the warehouse. When the warehouse is full of spirit stones, the general will bring them back to the Sky Patrol City and hand them over to the city governor. General. Xiaohua was stunned. Sure enough, Cui Hongshan was also puzzled and asked in a low voice, General is Senior Tu Hong, right? Yes. The Qi refining realm disciple nodded and said, Senior Tu is a Golden Core realm senior. He has been in charge of the Spirit Stone Vein in Mount Springgold for hundreds of years. The title of General is a title of honor in Sky Patrol City. My Golden Spring Mountains disciples all address Senior Tu as such. This junior is also used to it. As they spoke, Xiaohua and the others entered the cave. This cave was also huge. Just like the previous space, there were some flowers and plants. After flying for another incense stick's worth of time, the number of Sky Patrol City's disciples decreased. It was also much quieter. The Qi refinement disciple said in a low voice, This is the place where the high-ranking disciples of the Sky Patrol City rest and cultivate. It's usually quieter here. Due to the arrival of the seniors, the general has moved the disciples here to another place. The heaven and earth spirit Qi here is denser than anywhere else. I hope you'll be satisfied. Many thanks for Senior Tu's arrangement. Cui Hongshan replied with a smile. When a huge stone wall appeared in front of them with numerous caves on it, the Qi refinement disciple clapped his hands and took out a jade amulet. He handed it to Cui Hongshan with both hands and said, Inside each cave are 10 quiet rooms, all of which can be used for cultivation. Captain Cui and the other seniors, please rest for a while. After a few days, when all the seniors who came as reinforcements arrive, the general will definitely receive you all. All right. Many thanks. Cui Hongshan took the jade amulet. Also, if there's nothing else, please stay in this quiet room. If you feel bored, you can walk around outside the quiet room. However, please do not fly out of the cave outside. The Chi Refinement disciple smiled apologetically and reminded, our Sky Patrol City has set up many powerful restrictions here. Many of them are so powerful that even the general does not dare to touch them casually. If any of the seniors were to walk into the wrong place, I'm afraid the consequences would be very serious. Hee, we understand. Cui Hongshan smiled and cupped his hands. After the Chi Refinement disciple bowed, he turned around and flew away. Hee, I thought it would be an extremely dangerous mission. Zhen Minghui and Xiao Hua had the same thought. After the disciple left, Zhen Minghui chuckled and said, so it's so carefree. It's the same as when I was patrolling the Thunder Palace in the past. The heaven and earth spirit chi here is so dense, it seems to be even better than the Thunder Palace. This mission is really too easy. I'm afraid so. Cui Hongshan injected his dermic powers into the jade amulet. The jade amulet turned into a stream and rushed into one of the caves. After breaking the restriction outside the cave, he smiled and said, the spiritual stone veins in Mount Quanjin are buried so deep. I'm afraid that the Sky Patrol City has set up this place for thousands of years. Even if a sword cultivator were to fly over it, it would be impossible for them to know about it, not to mention that they would not even think of this place. As long as the disciples who come to Mount Quanjin are more cautious and not let the sword cultivator's eyes and ears find them, we will have nothing to worry about. Dui Chiming nodded. What about the dozens of disciples who escaped? Xiao Hua reminded, if they were captured by the sword cultivator, they might have been forced to confess or have their souls searched. Cui Hongshan's expression changed slightly. He frowned and said, I'm afraid it's not good to ask. This is a shameful matter between the Utopia faction and Kunlun sect. It's not good for me to mention it. I just hope that they don't know about Mount Quanjin, or that they were killed by the sword cultivator once they saw him. Let's go. Xiao Hua was the first to enter the cave. He smiled and said, if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. Senior 2 is a golden core cultivator. With him around, we don't have to worry. Inside the cave, there were indeed 10 quiet rooms. Xiao Hua and the others each found one. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui discussed together. Dui Qiming and Ming Mao chattered together. Xiao Hua was the first to activate the restriction of the quiet room. Without waiting to sit cross-legged, he took out the wishful rod. The scene of killing the bird cultivator really shocked him. Along the way, he wanted to take it out and take a look. Xiao Hua was a little frustrated and scratched his head. Grow! Xiao Hua looked at the wishful rod that was less than 2 feet long and shouted in a low voice. With a whoosh, Xiao Hua's hand moved slightly, as if his arm had stretched out. The wishful rod indeed stretched out less than half a foot long. Ha! Xiao Hua laughed. He reached out and touched his nose. He shouted again, grow! Whoosh! The wishful rod once again grew half a foot long. Grow, grow! After Xiao Hua called out twice, he shut his mouth. The wishful steel rod grew again, reaching a total of 3 feet before stopping. Xiao Hua's hand also felt that it had stretched to the end, and could no longer stretch any further. In the records of ghost cultivators, the wishful rod of the 5 elements can pierce the 9 heavens and explore the 9 underworlds. How can this wishful rod only reach 3 feet? Xiao Hua said. Chapter 23-21. Then Xiao Hua secretly laughed, damn, this is already good. I still don't know how to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven staff. I can get such a prototype. With this thing, I will try my best to find the refining method and the materials used. As long as the opportunity is right, I will be able to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven staff sooner or later. Alas, I am afraid I will not see the great wisdom-heavy sword in the future. This guy seems to have accompanied me for a long time. Xiaohua played with the wishful heaven staff technique in the quiet room and shrunk the wishful heaven staff. Similarly, he could only shrink it to about 1 foot and could not shrink it anymore. After putting the wishful heaven staff into the space, Xiaohua looked at the duckling. After these days of recuperation, the duckling was obviously out of danger, just like Goldie. However, her recovery was also very slow and she still had not woken up. Alas, this space is a bit strange. I don't know how many years these eggs have been here, but why haven't there been any changes? Why can't anything hatch? Xiaohua swept his gaze over those insect eggs again. He actually had the intention to take these insect eggs into his spirit storage pouch, but then he had another thought. In any case, I have no use for these things. I want to see what exactly is stopping these insect eggs from hatching. Immediately after, Xiaohua took out the items from the 30 sword cultivators, as well as the 3 storage pouches from the bird cultivators. The sword cultivators' storage pouches were mostly filled with sword slips, spirit stones, and unknown medicinal pills. The bird cultivators' storage pouches had even more spirit stones, as well as some sword slips and medicinal pills. However, the bird cultivators' medicinal pills were very strange. They were as big as chicken eggs and incomparably smelly. Xiaohua sniffled and hastily put away these medicinal pills, and only then did he carefully look through the sword slips. After looking at them for a long time, Xiaohua was disappointed again. These sword slips didn't contain any primordial spirit sword controlling techniques, and they were only ordinary sword techniques for sword cultivators. This storage bag is a bit strange. When he picked up the last storage bag, Xiaohua's eyes lit up. The storage bag space was very large, and there was a faint sword light flowing inside. It seemed that the sword light could fly out. Moreover, in this storage bag, there was only a sword slip and a palm-sized purple-red wood. There was nothing else. That's strange. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then raised the storage pouch and looked around. After thinking hard for a moment, he somewhat understood. This storage pouch seemed to have been taken from the sword cultivator's bosom when he killed that sword cultivator who could resist the soul-absorbing bell. I'm afraid he has some background. Xiaohua thought and took out the sword slip. When he finished reading the contents, he was even more puzzled. Spirit-swallowing bug. Wasn't this the second spiritual insect recorded in the insect scripture? Huan country actually has it. Was this with the black silk wood? A spiritual object that can attract and find spirit-swallowing bugs. Xiaohua clapped his hand, and the purple-red black silk wood fell into his hand. Instantly, an extremely fragrant and sweet smell emanated from the black silk wood, and it instantly filled the entire room. That sweet fragrance entered Xiaohua's nose and mouth, and a feeling of laziness emerged in his mind. The soul thread in the mysterious dark cloud suddenly jumped, as if it had taken some elixir to refresh its mind. It jumped violently, and a powerful fluctuation spread out from within the dark cloud. My goodness, this is... Xiaohua was stunned at first, and then he was overjoyed. This was obviously something used by the soul cultivation method. Without the slightest hesitation, Xiaohua released his soul strands, which wrapped around the entire black silk wood. When the black silk wood entered the dark clouds with the soul strands, Xiaohua clearly sensed that the rich fragrance of the black silk wood filled the entire sky. His strand of primordial spirit happily flew along with the fluctuations in the sky. As it flew, his primordial spirit visibly grew stronger, and slowly rose higher. Wonderful! Xiaohua withdrew his primordial spirit and was really happy. Needless to say, sword cultivators and soul cultivators had fought for so long, so they must have a lot of things used by soul cultivators. Xiao Hua wanted to improve his soul cultivation, so killing sword cultivators was a shortcut. The Chestnut Valley recorded in the sword slip must be the place where the spirit-swallowing bugs are. If I have time, I can go there and see if I can get the larvae of the spirit-swallowing bugs. If I don't have time, then I'd better not go. Spirit-swallowing bugs, just thinking about it is horrifying. Xiao Hua now had a lot of spirit insects in the space, but they had not hatched. He even had the eggs of the mirage butterfly, which ranked first, so he really did not care about the spirit-swallowing bugs. Well, this storage bag is probably the spirit storage bag of a sword cultivator. Xiao Hua realized something and threw the storage bag into the space. Then, he erased the primordial spirits of all the flying swords and put them into another storage bag. The quality of these flying swords was ordinary, not as good as the previous green sword. Xiao Hua did not care about them. He would wait until he returned to the Sky Patrol City and exchange them for spirit stones and other things. Then, Xiao Hua took out the sword slip of the bird cultivator. The 3 sword slips of the bird cultivator recorded the same thing. In addition to the method of integrating the spirit birds into the body, there was also the elixir formula for the bird cultivator to take. Xiao Hua just looked at the method of integrating the spirit birds into the body and then focused on the elixir formula. The elixir formula of the bird cultivator was very different from the elixir formula of the Taoist sect. It did not use spiritual herbs to refine the elixir, but the inner core of spirit beasts and the flesh of spirit beasts. It was somewhat similar to the elixir formula of the legendary Feng He. No wonder it smells a little. Xiao Hua frowned and finished reading the elixir formula. He thought to himself, the inner core of the spirit beasts is used as the main ingredient, and the flesh and scales are used as supplements. It should be another refining method. Although it looks very bloody, it is also wonderful. I have not seen the elixir formula of the Feng He. I'm afraid it is a kind of moderate method, with inner core and spiritual herbs. However, the inner core of the beast cultivator can not only improve the cultivation, but also strengthen the body according to their secret method. It is also useful. It's this stench. I have to think about how to get rid of it. Otherwise, how can I take it? Xiao Hua thought and carefully read the elixir formula several times. He remembered it in his heart and put it into the space. The spiritual stone vein. Xiao Hua counted his gains and looked around the quiet room. He thought to himself, it has been so long since I got the refining method of the talisman from Tianmen Mountain. My primordial spirit has already understood the most basic refining method. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to find the jade essence. Now that I am in the spiritual stone vein, I should be able to find some to practice. This was what Xiao Hua wanted the most when he came to the spiritual stone vein in Jinquan Mountain. However, since the jade essence was such a precious thing, Xiao Hua would not be able to get it easily. Moreover, the spiritual stone vein in Jinquan Mountain was extremely precious to the Sky Patrol City. Although the disciples of the Taoist sect came to help, they were probably patrolling. It was almost impossible for them to go deep into the jade stone vein. Looks like I have to think of something. Xiao Hua scratched his chin and thought to himself. Just as he swallowed a few cyan spirit pills and was about to activate his cultivation method to cultivate, he suddenly jumped up again. His face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression as he muttered, You see, with so many things, it's really easy for people to overlook. That's what I said. How can this beast cultivation method be useless? Isn't this thing a copy of the puppet technique? Of course, after Xiao Hua obtained the upper part of the puppet technique from Mo Qingyuan, he had already comprehended it thoroughly. He already knew the basic puppet repair technique and even knew the material of the puppet. However, these were all the basics. Relying on these alone was far from enough to refine a puppet, let alone a high-level puppet, or even a puppet with sentience. When Xiaohua saw the bird cultivator's cultivation method, he suddenly realized something. Wasn't this kind of cultivation method that fused spirit birds with the body essentially the refining method of sentient puppets? Was this the puppet technique that used the body as the puppet and the spiritual beast as the primordial spirit? Moreover, Xiaohua already knew the weapon refining technique. Using the 5 elements weapon refining technique to refine a puppet, and then using the beast cultivation secret technique. Would he be able to refine a sentient puppet soon? Comprehending by analogy, my old friend is not deceiving me. Xiaohua was more aware of the importance of having a wide range of knowledge than now. Mo Qingyuan, this bastard, actually used the lower part of the puppet technique as bait to make this young master go find him. Isn't he at the extreme north of the Dawn Rain continent with the Huan country? His so-called puppet sect is probably just some cultivation method and secret technique that he obtained from the beast cultivation method, and then used it to suit the Dao sect's cultivators. This young master has also found the trick now, so who would pay attention to him? Xiaohua thought to himself. If this place was the weapon refining technique, or if Xiaohua had the materials to refine a puppet, he would definitely ignite the earth fire and other materials without hesitation to practice the inspiration he had just now. Unfortunately, this was a quiet room, and the materials to refine a puppet were also difficult to find. Xiaohua could only understand all the details and forcefully suppress his excitement. Only then did he sit down cross-legged, consume the azure spirit pill, and use the immortal body bestowment technique. He did his best to absorb the rich earth spirit qi of heaven and earth, and even refined the earth crystal yao milk in his meridians. Gradually, he entered the ethereal realm. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed, and no one came to disturb Xiaohua's cultivation. Naturally, Xiaohua was also happy to be free. However, no one disturbed Xiaohua, but that didn't mean that there was nothing. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the disciples of Jinshan Quanshan came to look for the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. They said that all the Dao Sect's disciples who came to support had arrived, and Tu Hong invited the representatives of the various sects to meet them. Because there were too many disciples who came to support this time, no matter how many small teams came or how many people came, each sect only invited 3 disciples to be their representatives. Only Cui Hongshan's first small team from the Imperial Thunder sect came to Jinshan Quanshan, so they didn't have to worry about which small team's disciples or leaders to go. They only needed to send 3 people. Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui were naturally the 2 candidates, and according to Zhen Minghui's thoughts, the 3rd must be Xiaohua. Hearing Zhen Minghui's suggestion, Cui Hongshan immediately rejected it. Chapter 23-22. No one understood Xiaohua better than Cui Hongshan. Xiaohua was the kind of person who was too lazy to entertain others. He would rather hide at the side and cultivate than to make friends with other cultivators. Since Cui Hongshan objected, Zhen Minghui did not say anything more. Other than Xiaohua, the most suitable candidate was Dui Qiming. Firstly, she was a female cultivator. Secondly, she was a disciple of Lightning Palace. She would follow Cui Hongshan and Zhen Minghui and would be the representative of Lightning Palace in the first team. Thus, Cui Hongshan and the rest did not inform Xiaohua and followed the disciple of Golden Spring Mountain to Tu Hong's reception area. Tu Hong was a Jindan stage cultivator, and he was also one of the warlords of the Golden Spring Mountain. Even though it wasn't as majestic as a sect's guest hall, it was still far from what an ordinary cultivator's guest hall could compare with. This was an oval-shaped space that was a few hundred feet in size. There were thick yellow pillars that even a few cultivators would not be able to hug all of them. The pillars were engraved with complicated runes that were connected to the runes on the ground and ceiling of the space. There was a faint fluctuation of magic power. However, if one used their divine sense to scan it, they would not be able to find any trace of it. The pillars were extremely tall, at least 100 feet. The top of the pillars was similarly blue in color, like the clear blue sky. The white clouds in the blue sky were connected to each other. This was the complicated runes. In the gaps of the runes, there were hundreds and thousands of bright flower stones embedded in them, illuminating the entire space. It was no different from the clear sky. Below the walls of the space and on the ground, there were huge spiritual grasses or extremely tall spiritual trees planted from time to time. The fragrance of the spiritual grasses and the branches and leaves of the spiritual trees swayed in the wind. At first glance, no one would think that the space was underground. Cui Hongshan was also from a cultivator family and was quite knowledgeable. Following the disciple of Golden Spring Mountain into the reception area, he did not use his divine sense to scan the place. Instead, he used his eyes to think about the ravines and plants outside. He knew that General Tu Hong, who he had only heard of and had never met before, was a senior with good taste, who knew how to enjoy life, and even had some elegance. Hongshan, this reception area is so big. It should be able to accommodate all the disciples, right? Why is there a need to send only 3 people each? Dui Qiming's eyes shifted as she transmitted a message in a low voice. Cui Hongshan had long noticed that some disciples from other sects had already arrived. They were standing right in front of the hall, and in front of them was a jade table that was half the height of a person. On top of the table was a square vessel with more than a dozen token arrows inserted into it. Behind the table was a jade chair. Cui Hongshan narrowed his eyes and transmitted his voice. Senior Tu Hong is a gold core cultivator, and we are merely juniors. There are even qi refining disciples among the disciples who came as reinforcements. How can he meet us one by one? This method of meeting the leaders of the various sects is precisely Senior's choice. Following which, he said with admiration, this Cui really wants to see what this general of Quanjin Mountain's disciple looks like. If this Cui has such cultivation and authority one day, I will certainly build my cave residence in such an elegant manner. Yes, Cui Lang can definitely do it. Dui Qiming had a smile on her face, and her eyes were filled with tenderness. She quietly extended her hand and held Cui Hongshan's hand. Dui Qiming didn't particularly like Cui Hongshan in the past. She even felt that the myriad Thunder Valley of Seismic Thunder Palace wasn't worthy of her. In particular, the myriad Thunder Valley had always been weak, which made her master somewhat hesitant. She was afraid that Dui Qiming would suffer some grievances after marrying into the myriad Thunder Valley. She had also mentioned this in front of Dui Qiming. Dui Qiming had also vaguely revealed this matter to Cui Hongshan during their interactions. It could be considered as a warning in advance, such as Xiang Yang's cowardice, Xiaohua's jokes, and so on. She had even pointed out that this might be the reason why the two of them couldn't dual cultivate in the future. Therefore, this was also the reason why Cui Hongshan had some resentment towards Xiaohua. However, Cui Hongshan's performance was different from Xiang Yang and Xiaohua's. He had a wide range of connections in Thunderclap Palace. While others mocked Myriad Thunder Valley, he endured the humiliation and became friends with them. In addition, his own aptitude was not bad. Gradually, he had some reputation in the Seismic Thunder Palace. Dui Qiming and her master naturally also heard of him. Dui Qiming also gradually agreed to Cui Hongshan's dual cultivation in her heart. She felt that Cui Hongshan could revitalize the myriad Thunder Valley. Xiang Yang and Xiaohua's weakness was also a good opportunity for Cui Hongshan to rise and even control the myriad Thunder Valley. When Xiang Yang returned to the mountain, Xiang Zhili suddenly became a new force to be reckoned with, and the myriad Thunder Valley became even more dazzling. Dui Qiming's master's eyes were naturally very sharp. She knew that the myriad Thunder Valley would definitely obtain the favor of Thunder Meng Daoist in the future by relying on Xiang Zhili. This was the best time for her to become friends with the myriad Thunder Valley. In addition, the myriad Thunder Valley had promised Dui Qiming a mysterious betrothal gift that could allow Dui Qiming to attain a gold core. She naturally agreed to Dui Qiming marrying the myriad Thunder Valley. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to the person. At this crucial moment, a great sword battle appeared. It completely messed up the dual cultivation ceremony that the two had planned long ago. Just as Dui Qiming's heart was in a mess, she unexpectedly discovered that Cui Hongshan, who she thought highly of before, had unexpectedly exceeded her expectations. He had actually placed her in the same small team as him, and moreover, it was the first small team of the Imperial Thunder sect. Her heart, which was already in love with him, became even sweeter than honey. She knew that she had entrusted herself to a great husband, who far exceeded her expectations. Naturally, the sudden changes in the situation and the rise of strange peaks exceeded her expectations. It was the most inconceivable thing she had ever encountered since she became sensible. The joke that the myriad Thunder Valley was ridiculed by others was actually not a joke, but a true legend. An early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator whose cultivation was comparable to a gold core was precisely capable of turning the entire seismic Thunder Palace into a joke. With a fierce person like Xiaohua in the myriad Thunder Valley, would they still be bullied by the other disciples of the seismic Thunder Palace? If he didn't bully other disciples, they would be secretly happy. Of course, Dui Qiming naturally also considered for her sweetheart. With Xiaohua, how would Cui Hongshan stand out in the myriad Thunder Valley? However, if Xiaohua's cultivation was at the middle stage of Foundation establishment, Dui Qiming would still consider it. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's cultivation was comparable to the late stage of Foundation establishment, which was close to the early stage of Gold Core. This was a helpless cultivation. He was simply not on the same level as Cui Hongshan. Dui Qiming only pondered for a moment before giving up. The two of them simply weren't on the same path. What puzzled Dui Qiming the most was that with Xiaohua's cultivation, why was he so secretive? He didn't even know about helplessness. Of course, Cui Hongshan was still dazzling in the myriad Thunder Valley even though Xiaohua had concealed it. What made Dui Qiming feel the most at ease was Xiaohua's attitude towards Cui Hongshan. She knew very well that the filth between the two of them was precisely because of Xiaohua's narrow-mindedness. Dui Qiming was a woman, and she was very clear. Xiaohua treated Cui Hongshan as a fellow disciple. Otherwise, not to mention rescuing them from the hands of the sword cultivators, even if he killed them all, who would know? And Xiaohua gave them a lot of pills and flying swords without the slightest bit of stinginess. Chapter 23-23. What was the reason for a narrow-minded person like Xiaohua to not be stingy? Dui Qiming also understood that Xiaohua definitely had more things in his hands. That was the storage pouches of dozens of sword cultivators. The things inside were unimaginable. Who did this belong to? Xiaohua couldn't finish using it. If he couldn't use it, then it must belong to Myriad Thunder Valley. How many people were there in Myriad Thunder Valley? How much could Dui Qiming and Cui Hongshan get? It went without saying. What Dui Qiming admired the most was that Cui Hongshan's attitude towards Xiaohua was still magnanimous and neither haughty nor humble. Magnanimous because he tolerated Xiaohua's little temper, as if Xiaohua didn't reveal his cultivation. Neither haughty nor humble because Cui Hongshan still had the face of a senior brother. He didn't call himself junior brother just because Xiaohua's cultivation was much higher than his. Wasn't this Cui Hongshan, who didn't feel joy from external gains and was extremely refined and gentlemanly, the perfect partner in Dui Qiming's heart? Feeling Dui Qiming's tenderness, Cui Hongshan's heart felt sweet. It seemed that all the grievances he had suffered and everything he had done before had been repaid. He unconsciously clenched his fist. This clench was far beyond any other action. It was the charm of two hearts touching. Captain Cui, these are spirit stones. Shen Minghui naturally turned a blind eye to the two's intimacy. However, when he walked past a stone pillar and accidentally touched it with his hand, he couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. What? Spirit stones? Senior brother Minghui, you said, this entire stone pillar is made of spirit stones. Hearing this, Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming were greatly shocked. The two let go of their hands and raised their heads at the same time, looking at that extremely tall and thick stone pillar with an inconceivable gaze. It wasn't that Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming had never seen spirit stones before. It wasn't that they hadn't thought of thousands of spirit stones appearing in this spirit stone mine. However, such a thick crystal pillar of spirit stones was erected here as a pillar. This kind of extravagance was something they had never dreamt of even in their dreams. This is a supreme-grade spirit stone. Dui Qiming moved her eyes over and scanned it with her divine sense. However, that divine sense was blocked by the runes outside of the crystal pillar. Impossible. Cui Hongshan shook his head. This should be the low-grade spirit stones left behind after Golden Spring Mountain excavated the spirit stone vein. I'll let Captain Cui know. This is a real top-grade spirit stone. The Quanjin Mountain Qi refinement disciple who had been leading the way and had not spoken a single word could not help but correct Cui Hongshan's self-righteousness. It's not just here, there are more in other places of my Quanjin Mountain. Ah. Top-grade spirit stones. How many are there in this hall? Cui Hongshan's face flashed with extreme embarrassment, which was immediately covered up by shock. His eyes swept across the hall. There were probably dozens or even hundreds of such large stone pillars in the hall. If they were all top-grade spirit stones, then how many would there be? It was simply enough to buy the entire Cui family, right? I'll let Captain Cui know. I've counted them before, and it's exactly 81. That aura refining disciple couldn't help but show off. Moreover, I've heard the general occasionally mention that this is precisely the crystal pillar of some great formation. I understand now. Cui Hongshan nodded slightly, and his face returned to normal. He smiled and said, the Sky Patrol City is indeed generous. They've really put in a lot of effort for this spirit stone vein. Seeing Cui Hongshan's calm expression, that aura-refining disciple was actually a little disappointed. Thinking of the first time he saw so many top-grade spirit stones, he couldn't calm down even after dozens of days. The aura-refining disciple led Cui Hongshan and the other two to the table. When they were about a dozen feet away from the table, the aura-refining disciple stopped. He bowed and said, Captain Cui, these are the seats for your esteemed group's disciples. Please wait here for a moment, our general will be here soon. Cui Hongshan looked to his left and right. In front of him were disciples dressed in Taoist robes from Splendid Sect and Xuanyan Sect. On the left and right were disciples from Lian Country and Meng Country. Knowing that this seat was arranged by Golden Spring Mountain, he cupped his hands and said, Thank you, fellow cultivator. After that aura-refining disciple left, Cui Hongshan and the others stood quietly with their eyes slightly closed, waiting for Tu Hong's arrival. After a few minutes, there was another series of footsteps. Cui Hongshan and the others turned their heads slightly and saw that the disciples of Utopia faction and Tai Ching sect were also led in by Golden Spring Mountain's disciples. Naturally, both He Fang Yuan and Yang Fangqing were shocked by this huge top-grade spirit stone crystal pillar. Looking at their astonishment and embarrassment, Cui Hongshan smiled in his heart. Ha, ha, so it's not only me, but also the disciples of these big sects, are also making a fool of themselves. When He Fang Yuan stopped and glanced at the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, he saw that Xiao Hua wasn't among them. His face showed a trace of relief. Then he cupped his hand slightly towards Cui Hongshan and transmitted his voice, "Captain Cui, why didn't junior brother Xiao come?" Cui Hongshan replied with a smile, "Xiao Hua is refining his cultivation method. He didn't have time to come." "Captain He, what's the matter?" "Ha ha, it's nothing." He Fang Yuan thought for a while and said, "Junior brother Xiao killed the bird cultivator to avenge my Tai Ching sect's disciples. Earlier, junior brother Zhao's primeval essence was exhausted and he was recovering. I didn't dare to disturb him. I originally wanted to see him here and thank him in person. I can bring these words back." Cui Hongshan was a little puzzled. "Moreover, I'm afraid tomorrow is our turn. There will be a time when we meet. Captain He can also mention this to Xiao Hua." "That, ha ha." He Fang Yuan looked around and saw Yang Fangqing's gaze. He nodded slightly at him and said to Cui Hongshan, "Actually, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you can fulfill it." "Oh. What is it?" "I hope Captain He can explain it clearly." Cui Hongshan really didn't understand and secretly wondered if it had anything to do with Xiao Hua. Sure enough, He Fang Yuan hesitated slightly before smiling apologetically. "My Tai Ching sect's disciples were saved by Imperial Thunder sect's disciples. I have already recorded this in my captain token. Regardless of whether I live or die, my Tai Ching sect will definitely repay this favor to Imperial Thunder sect. Captain Cui, your first team's contribution will not be small." Cui Hongshan heard this and was overjoyed, nodding. "This matter was all done by Xiao Hua. Ha ha, Captain Cui, no need to be modest." He Fang Yuan waved his hand. "Fellow Daoist Zhao's contributions are truly great. But fellow Daoist Cui and the others didn't fear the sword cultivator and risked their lives to save him. I am truly impressed." "Ha ha, many thanks, Captain He." Cui Hongshan knew there would be a "but" after this, so he smiled and nodded. "However, that disciple of my Tai Ching sect," He Fang Yuan said with difficulty, "since he was already killed by the bird cultivator, that moment of cowardice earlier can't be his only performance. Moreover, his performance since the beginning of the battle was not bad. At that time, it was just a moment of confusion. The ancients often say that a single slip will cause everlasting sorrow. Oh, Cui Hongshan suddenly realized and hurriedly stopped He Fang Yuan's words. He smiled and said, "Captain He, don't say too much. The record in my captain token is even simpler. It only states that I met fellow Daoist Tai Ching sect and helped him. Nothing else is written." He Fang Yuan heard this and was overjoyed. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Captain Cui." "Ha ha, you're welcome, you're welcome." Cui Hongshan also cupped his hands from afar. In addition, fellow Daoist Yang Fangqing of the Utopia faction and fellow Daoist Ku Xingxi of the Kunlun sect also had the same idea. This matter is a disgrace to all the sections. If we explain it at this time, it will definitely affect the morale of the disciples of all the sects, He Fang Yuan said again. So, we discussed and only recorded the disciples involved in this matter in the captain token. I hope that Captain Cui will not inform Sky Patrol City of this matter when you are at Quanjin Mountain. When you return to Sky Patrol City, you can report it to Yanxi Prefecture's meeting hall. After all, this is our Dao sect's own matter. There is no need to let Sky Patrol City know so clearly. Ha, this is what Xiaohua wants. Cui Hongshan narrowed his eyes and muttered in his heart. He knew that Xiaohua did not want to attract attention. However, Cui Hongshan frowned and said with a bitter expression, I can naturally cover up the matter regarding the Tai Ching sect's disciples, but the disciples of the other sects. Even if I agree to it, my junior brother won't agree to it. Captain, he also knows that he abhors evil. I'm afraid it will not be easy to deal with him. I'll have to rely on Captain Cui to deal with him. Fang Yuan's heart relaxed when he heard this. Xiaohua's cultivation was high. He was a little anxious and felt that he did not dare to say too much. Facing Cui Hongshan, Fang Yuan could say it. We are all fellow Taoists who bathed in blood together in the sword battle. Not to mention others, fellow Taoists Yang Fangqing and Ku Xingxi have long had the intention to befriend fellow Taoist Cui. Although we can't be sworn brothers with the secular world, we can share blessings and misfortunes together. Good. Cui Hongshan nodded, just as Captain, he said, we are fellow Taoists who have gone through life and death together. Tai Ching sect's Captain, his matter is my matter, and fellow Taoists Yang and Ku Xingxi's matter is also my matter. Captain, please rest assured, I will agree to this matter. Great. Fang Yuan was very happy and cupped his fists at Cui Hongshan again. Then, he transmitted his voice to Yang Fangqing and the others. Not long after, Yang Fangqing, Ku Xingxi, and even the captains of other sects who came first also thanked Cui Hongshan. Deserting in the face of danger was indeed despised by all cultivators in the sword battle. Especially in Jin Quan Mountain, in front of Patrol Heaven City, and in front of the other sects of the Three Kingdoms, it was definitely a taboo for Tai Ching sect and the other sections. Cui Hongshan not mentioning this matter was naturally giving face to the other sections. Fang Yuan and the others had to accept this favor, and this favor was also extremely huge. Then, Cui Hongshan transmitted his voice to Zhen Minghui and Dui Qiming. Both of them nodded. Dui Qiming looked at her lover and felt that he was even more lofty. Cough cough, a low cough came from behind the table in front of everyone. On the stone wall behind the table, a faint yellow light flashed, and a short and even somewhat stooped old man walked out of the light. Seeing that the cultivator's white hair and the hardships on his face, Cui Hongshan was secretly disappointed. This was not the image of General Tu Hongtu in his heart. To be continued. Chapter 23-24. Fellow Taoists, my family's general has some matters to attend to and will be delayed for a moment. This old man came first to apologize to all of you fellow Taoists. The old man walked to the side of the table, but didn't sit down on the jade chair. Instead, he slowly walked to the side of the table and cupped his hands across his chest as he spoke. Sure enough, this isn't Tu Hong. Cui Hongshan was overjoyed. He immediately probed the old man's cultivation. Sure enough, he was only at the late Foundation establishment realm. We wouldn't dare. Senior 2 is busy, so we will wait here. For him to send Senior here, it really makes us juniors panic. A disciple of the Splendid Flower sect respectfully said. This old man is Lon Xan. I am the general's assistant. The old man smiled. Fellow Taoists have come to help and are honored guests of my Golden Springs Mountain. How could this old man not come to receive you? However, because this is a war, wine is not allowed. Otherwise, with the general's hospitable personality, he would have already prepared a feast to welcome you. Old Master Lon, what are you saying behind my back? A hearty voice sounded out. From the brilliance that Lon Xan had just appeared, a tall middle-aged cultivator walked out. Cui Hongshan's eyes brightened. This cultivator had a square face. His face was fair and clean, with silkworm eyebrows and phoenix eyes. His nose was like a hanging gall bladder, and he had a long beard. His eyes were filled with righteousness. This is a true general. Cui Hongshan secretly cheered in his heart. Not only does he have a dignified appearance, but he is also kind and approachable. He only delayed us for a moment, and yet this subordinate has to come here and apologize. He is truly admirable. Looking at Tu Hong's body, he wasn't wearing an ordinary Daoist robe, but a soft armor that protected his vest. The valiant aura of this armor accentuated his scholarly elegance, making him stand out from the masses. Ha, General, how could this old man dare to speak ill of the general? I was only casually chatting with fellow Daoists. As Lan Axayan spoke, she turned to the cultivators and nodded with a smile. But at this time, Lan Axayan's eyes swept over the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect and saw the smiling Dui Qiming. Ah! Lan Axayan's eyebrows shot up, her eyes flashing with amazement. But then, she turned to look at Tu Hong. As Tu Hong saw Lan Axayan's gaze, he was also startled. Following her gaze, he naturally saw Dui Qiming. Tu Hong's pupils suddenly widened, then returned to normal. Even the expression on his face changed slightly. Hee, old Master Lan, have you seen the fellow Taoists from the various sects who came to reinforce us? Tu Hong was still smiling as he asked. His gaze left Dui Qiming and gently swept across the disciples of the other sects. All right, I'll let the general know that I haven't had the chance to get to know each and every one of you. Lan Axayan also regained her composure. She bowed and said, this old woman didn't think that the High General would arrive so quickly. And all of you are my Jin Quan Mountain's guests. They risked their lives to come here. How can this old man treat them badly? There's no need to mention other trivial matters. As Tu Hong spoke, he cupped his hands across his chest and said, this old man is Tu Hong, the guard of my Sky Patrol city at Jin Quan Mountain. Fellow Taoists have come to my Jin Quan Mountain for many days, but this old man has not seen any of you, so I feel very uneasy. I ask that fellow Taoists be magnanimous and forgive me. We greet Senior too. The cultivators didn't dare to be negligent. They all bowed in respect. Do you think this old man is old? Tu Hong stretched out his hand and stroked his 5 strands of beard. He smiled and said, it looks like this old man will have to call himself Tu. Senior Tu is truly approachable. A captain of the Black Sky sect smiled and said, your appearance is similar to this junior's senior apprentice brother. If Senior wasn't a golden core cultivator, then this junior would have called you senior apprentice brother. Lan Axayan also smiled and said, the High General has eaten the youth-preserving herb, so your appearance will never change. In addition, your hot-bloodedness has ensured the safety of my Jin Quan Mountain. That is something this old man cannot do. That's enough. Tu Hong waved his hand and sat down on a jade chair. He smiled and said, the greetings are over. Fellow Taoists, please tell me about the situation from Sky Patrol City. This way, this too can have a clear idea of what happened and see if there is any way to reveal our whereabouts. Yes. Lan Axayan replied from the side. She turned to the cultivators and said, fellow Taoists, please follow the order of the Lian Nation, Meng Nation, and Shi Nation. Follow the order from the beginning to the end. Thus, the disciples of the various sects followed Lan Axayan's instructions. One by one, they began to recount what happened after they left Sky Patrol City's transmission array. As for Tu Hong, he sat upright on his jade chair, his expression solemn. He no longer had the playful smile from before. His eyes shined as he listened, and from time to time, he would interject and ask a few questions. It's a bit troublesome. Cui Hongshan heard the disciples of the various sects say that they had encountered different sword cultivators. They had fought life and death battles, and there had been some casualties. Moreover, the cultivation of these sword cultivators wasn't too high. Cui Hongshan suddenly realized that they had encountered dozens of swordsmen. That was definitely not something that the 10 disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect could deal with. If this matter were to spread out, Xiaohua would definitely become famous in one fell swoop. But that bastard concealed his cultivation, wasn't it because he didn't want others to know? Last time at Chicken Crow Mountain, he also clearly said not to mention his cultivation. Cui Hongshan said with a faint feeling of jealousy. However, after he heard He Fang Yuan and Yang Fangqing's words, he had a plan in his heart. What these two people said was the same as what they had discussed before. They only said that they had encountered a beast cultivator at the end, and at the critical moment of being besieged, the Imperial Thunder sect disciples had come to help. They didn't mention any disciples that had escaped. Since others had concealed it, he could certainly conceal it. When Cui Hongshan reported, he clearly stated the route he had taken, as well as the sword cultivators and beast cultivators he had encountered. However, the cultivation and number of sword cultivators had shrunk. Tu Hong also nodded as he listened. After Cui Hongshan finished, he said, "In a great battle of the sword path, our Dao sect's cultivators should work together to resist the enemy. This time, Imperial Thunder sect came to help our Jin Quan Mountain Spirit Stone Mine. They had done well in this matter. When the other sect's disciples were in danger, they stepped forward despite the difficulties and risked their lives. They should be rewarded." Then, he looked at the others and said, "I would like to report this to Sky Patrol City and award Jin Quan Mountain's first great merit to Imperial Thunder sect's first team. Does anyone have any objections? My Tai Ching sect supports it." He Fang Yuan was the first to raise his hand without hesitation. Yang Fangqing, Kuxingxi, and the rest also agreed. The other cultivators looked at each other helplessly. It was very obvious that although there were more than a dozen disciples behind the Imperial Thunder sect who hadn't reported, from the previous reports, it seemed that apart from the first team of the Imperial Thunder sect who acted to save others, most of the other teams didn't care about their own safety and escaped if they could. Even if someone acted, it was only to save one team. How could they save 4 or 5 teams at once? We have no objections. The other disciples naturally knew that Tu Hong was trying to motivate them and raise their morale. They had no objections to Imperial Thunder sect's reward, so they raised their hands and agreed with a bitter expression. Chapter 23-25. Captain Cui, bring out your token. Lon Axayan said with a smile. Yes. Cui Hongshan's heart was filled with excitement. This merit came too easily. His luck, this opportunity was truly indescribable. After Tu Hong wrote something on Cui Hongshan's token, he looked at it and smiled. I have always been clear about rewards and punishments. For the Imperial Thunder sect to do such a good deed, I must definitely reward them. Afterwards, I will report this matter to Sky Patrol City and ask them to inform the meeting hall to reward the Imperial Thunder sect's first squad. Cui Hongshan received the token and bowed. This junior thanks senior too for the reward. This junior will engrave this matter in my heart and carefully explain senior's words to this subordinate. I will strive to achieve more merits in the sword war. Good. Tu Hong clapped his hands. Fellow Daoist Chui's words are exactly what I was thinking. The sword war has just begun and there will be many opportunities for you to achieve merits. Even in my Golden Spring Mountain, there will still be opportunities to do so in the future. I want to see which fellow Daoist is worthy of my reward. Furthermore, as fellow Daoists can see, my Golden Spring Mountain may not have much, but we have a lot of spirit stones and other items. If any fellow Taoist can contribute to my Golden Spring Mountain, this too will definitely not treat him unfairly. Yes, we understand. Everyone's eyes brightened as they heard that there would be spirit stones as rewards. They bowed and said. After waiting for the dozens of sects to finish explaining the situation, Tu Hong smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, you have worked hard. Under the arrangement and leadership of all of you, although there are close to 3,000 disciples who came to my Golden Spring Mountain, according to what I know, they did not arouse the suspicion of the sword cultivators. This is indeed worthy of celebration. In fact, this is a great merit. I will definitely report this matter to Sky Patrol City." "Yes, thank you, Senior too." The cultivators beamed with joy. "As for the rest of the fellow Taoists, I will leave the arrangements to fellow Taoist Lon. I still have some official business to attend to, so forgive me for not accompanying you." Tu Hong stood up and cupped his hands before turning to leave. As he left, his eyes couldn't help but sweep over the Imperial Thunder Sect's Dui Qiming. "Farewell, Senior Tu." Everyone bowed. Dui Qimeng was also very grateful for Tu Hong's reward to the Imperial Thunder Sect and smiled respectfully. After Tu Hong left, Lon Axian took out a jade slip from her bosom. She smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, here are all Foundation Establishment cultivators. You are far stronger than the disciples of my Golden Springs Mountain. My Golden Springs Mountain will definitely provide you with a strong support. For the past 10 days, the Commander-in-Chief has been racking his brains to make arrangements to properly set up the defense of my Golden Spring Mountain. Of course, as fellow Taoists can see, my Golden Spring Mountain's defensive array is perfect. Even if sword cultivators were to fly over it, they wouldn't be able to sense it. At the same time, this old man will reveal one more thing. Even if 10 illusory sword cultivators attack at the same time, my Golden Spring Mountain's defensive array will definitely not be broken. Furthermore, these 10 illusory swordsmen may not be able to escape unscathed." As these words came out, all of the cultivators present smiled. Even if Lon Xian's words were a bit exaggerated, the truth was that she could resist at least 5 of them. 5 sword cultivators that were equivalent to Golden Core stage cultivators. Just how sturdy was this Golden Spring Mountain's array? Just how stable would they be inside the array? Sending so many disciples out, isn't this a bit too much for the assembly hall? Are the other spirit stone veins the same? Many ideas were born in the minds of the disciples present. Of course, this array formation still needs someone to preside over it. As if Lon Axian knew what everyone was thinking, she smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, you will be the main force behind this array formation in the future. However, I ask that fellow Taoists rest assured, there is no need to consume any magic power. As long as you understand the law formula, you will be able to channel the heaven and earth spiritual energy from the spirit stones into the array formation. My Golden Spring Mountain may lack many things, but there is one thing that I lack the most, and one thing that I do not lack the least. What I do not lack the least is spirit stones, and what I lack the most is disciples with the same cultivation as you fellow Taoists." Then, Lon Axian carefully explained the matters of the patrol. She divided the days and areas that each squad would patrol, and finally gave out the jade slip for the defensive array formation. However, when she passed the jade slip to Cui Hongshan, there was a slight hesitation. It was just that Cui Hongshan and the others didn't notice this. Everyone took their respective jade slips and bowed to bid their farewells to Lon Axian. Lon Axian quietly stood there, watching everyone leave. Her eyes didn't hesitate for a moment as she stared straight at Dui Qiming's back. He waited until Dui Qiming held Cui Hongshan's hand and walked out of the hall. Then, he sighed, turned around, and walked into the stone wall that had appeared. As the stone wall flashed with a brilliant light, his figure disappeared from sight. He didn't even care that there were still many Tao sect disciples that were slowly walking away. The place that Lon Axian appeared in was like a palace. Besides the gorgeous carvings and exquisite decorations, there were only a dozen or so handsome servants standing around. Seeing Lon Axian walk in, the servants immediately bowed in greeting. Lon Axian simply ignored them and didn't ask where Tu Hong was. She walked down the corridor, heading towards the deepest part of the palace. She knew that besides that place, Tu Hong absolutely wouldn't go anywhere else. As Lon Axian walked, the decorations of the palace became even more gorgeous. But the number of servants also decreased. When she arrived at a secluded quiet room, there was no one left. The quiet room was very empty. It wasn't too large and was quiet. Lon Axian stood in front of a stone wall, quietly standing there without speaking. After waiting for half a cup of tea's time, a slightly tired voice sounded out, "Old brother Lon, you can come in." This voice was Tu Hong. "Yes, this old man obeys." Lon Axian respectfully responded. Then, she saw a yellow circle appear on the stone wall. The circle slowly rotated, forming a deep vortex. A massive suction force covered Lon Axian, sucking her in. Lon Axian didn't struggle. She knew that this spell was personally controlled by Tu Hong. Without Tu Hong's permission, no disciple of Gold Spring Mountain could enter. Of course, as far as Lon Axian knew, besides her, no other disciple of Gold Spring Mountain could set foot in this forbidden land. The place where Lon Axian's figure was revealed was different from the palace. It was actually a slightly barren place. Not only was the light dim here, but the temperature was also much lower than in the snow region. This barren place was completely paved with cobblestones. Between the cobblestones, there were some light purple thorns that stubbornly pointed towards the sky. Above the thorns and cobblestones, there was a layer of frost-like salt. On top of the cobblestones, around 100 feet away from Lon Axian, there were two massive tents erected there. These two tents were oval in shape, with a high protrusion in the middle. There was a several-foot-tall mast erected in the middle of the tents, and above this mast was a square flag. However, this flag was empty without any sign at all. Just as Lon Axian stood there, her white hair began to condense into a layer of frost. However, he didn't step forwards. Instead, he placed his hands on his chest and lowered his head, silently looking at the cobblestones beneath his feet. It was like every cobblestone had its own sad and beautiful story. "Old brother Lon, how long has it been since you last came? Come and have a drink with me." "Yes, I will obey the orders of the general." As Lon Axian heard Tu Hong's words, she lifted her foot and walked towards the tent, step by step. Every time she stepped on the cobblestone would emit a rustling sound. These cobblestones actually didn't have any spells on them. When Lon Axian arrived in front of the tent, she saw the tent's curtains. Her eyes flashed with a strange light. She lifted the curtains and walked in. The tent was covered with a thick cotton carpet. As she stepped on it, she felt weak all over. On the left side of the curtains was a giant sand table. On it were some mountains and rivers, as well as several cities. There were even some small humanoid dolls standing on top of it, holding long spears in their hands. In front of the curtains, there were some ordinary chairs placed on top of the cotton carpet. Behind these chairs, there was a shelf, and on this shelf, there were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, and all sorts of other weapons. In front of the curtains was a table. This table had already faded in color, and was extremely similar to the table in the reception hall. There was also a flask on top of it, and within the flask were some arrows. After these arrows, Tu Hong held a large bowl in his hands. He glanced at Lon Exayan, tilted his head back, and drank all the strong wine in the bowl. And on top of this table, there was a blue porcelain jug. Gold Spring Mountain Tu Hong, a Golden Core Realm cultivator's secret hideout, was actually a military tent. Lon Exayan walked in front of the table and picked up the blue porcelain jug. She respectfully poured wine into the bowl that Tu Hong had placed down, and then filled another bowl to the brim. She picked up the wine bowl with both hands and raised it above her head. She respectfully said, "Lon Exayan offers a toast to the general." "Good." Tu Hong stretched out his hand, placing his index and middle fingers on the inside of the wine bowl and his thumb on the outside. He gently lifted the wine bowl and brought it forward until it touched Lon Exayan's bowl. He said, "Come, cheers." Gulp. 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 As Tu Hong gulped down the wine, the strong liquor flowed down his long beard and actually soaked his armor. If Cui Hongshan was here, he would definitely open his eyes wide. He couldn't believe that the refined Tu Hong actually had such a bold and unrestrained side to him. "That's great." Lon Exayan also drank in a single breath. Her clothes were soaked through. She sighed, "This is still a burning knife." Spicy and satisfying, the taste doesn't change at all. It's far better than any spirit wine. Since you haven't drunk in a long time, let's have 2 more cups. With a loud crash, Tu Hong slammed the wine bowl on the table and reached out to pick up the wine jug. Lon Exayan didn't dare to be negligent. She quickly grabbed the wine jug and apologetically smiled, "This old man will." As she spoke, she poured out 2 more bowls of wine and accompanied Tu Hong to drink 2 more cups. Suddenly, a dark red color rose up from Lon Exayan's face. "Old brother Lon. Your capacity for alcohol, hee, even though you've reached foundation establishment, you still haven't changed." Tu Hong smiled. He reached out for the wine jug and poured himself a bowl, not giving one to Lon Exayan. "This old man can't compare to the general." Lon Exayan smiled and said, "I don't need to use true essence to refine this strong wine. 2 bowls are enough." Chapter 23-26. I'm afraid you won't be able to experience the taste of 1,000 cups without getting drunk." Tu Hong waved his hand and drank another bowl of wine. Lon Exayan smiled as she watched Tu Hong drink the wine, the dark red on his face gradually fading away. After Tu Hong drank a bowl of wine, he didn't stop. Instead, he drank another bowl after another without stopping. Lon Exayan only respectfully stood there, watching, not saying a single word. Tu Hong picked up the wine jug and couldn't pour out a single drop. With a sigh, he tossed the wine jug to the side on the thick cotton carpet. Lon Exayan hesitated for a moment and then said, "This old woman didn't dare to ask. I wonder what Mian Shan's methods were like." "Like?" "Naturally, it would shock the world. Even I found it inconceivable." Tu Hong's eyebrows shot up. He glanced at Lon Exayan and then back at the empty bowl. "Oh. Then. I'm afraid this old woman will have to congratulate General." Lon Exayan looked at Tu Hong's expression and tentatively cupped her hands together. "If this was before today, I would have been overjoyed to hear your congratulations," Tu Hong said as he looked at the empty wine bowl, a bit self-deprecating. "This." Lon Exayan bit her lips. She didn't know how to respond. "Come. Old brother Lon, come with me." Tu Hong bitterly smiled and stood up from his chair. The chair creaked, as if it were also abnormally old. "Yes." Lon Exayan's heart tightened. She quickly followed behind Tu Hong. Tu Hong stood up. After several steps, he arrived at another curtain of the tent. As Tu Hong lifted the curtain, he saw the situation of the other tent. This tent was even more desolate. Besides a bed-like object standing in the middle of the tent, there was nothing else. And on this bed was a transparent crystal coffin. And inside this crystal coffin, there was a beautiful female cultivator lying on her back. If a single Imperial Thunder Sect disciple were to come here, they would definitely cry out in amazement. This was because this beautiful female cultivator looked almost exactly the same as Dui Qiming. As Tu Hong stepped into the tent, the anxiety in his eyes gradually faded and was replaced by a trace of gentleness. His footsteps were light, as if he was afraid of waking up the female cultivator from her sweet dreams. As Lan Axian entered the tent, she looked towards the crystal coffin. But as she saw the appearance of the female cultivator within, she frowned. She followed Tu Hong and quietly walked in front of the crystal coffin. Yumeng, as Lan Axian saw Tu Hong standing in front of the crystal coffin without speaking, she tentatively asked. But before she could finish speaking, Tu Hong raised his hand, indicating for her to shut up. Then, he clapped his hands together and took out a small bell from his storage bag. It was very similar to Xiao Hua's soul-sucking bell. Then, Tu Hong raised his hand and lifted the lid of the crystal coffin, revealing the face of the female cultivator. There was a faint layer of frost on her charming face. She was just like an ice beauty. Dang dang dang, the soul-suppressing bell in Tu Hong's hand rang. The female cultivator's tightly shut eyes slowly moved, then she opened them. She slowly stood up, looked around, and jumped out of the crystal coffin in a flash. She bowed to Tu Hong and said, "Greetings, husband." Yumeng, stand up." With a smile on his face, Tu Hong reached out and grabbed Yumeng's hand. The coldness from Yumeng's hand instantly penetrated his heart. "Congratulations, Lord General." Lan Axian bowed, her face full of amazement. The soul cultivator techniques of the Million Meng Mountains, they are truly, truly mysterious. This old woman really cannot imagine it. What's there to be happy about? Tu Hong ruefully smiled and pointed at Yumeng. "Old brother Lan, take a look." Is there any difference between Yumeng and the past, or perhaps, is there any difference between us? Lan Axian didn't know if she had seen clearly just now, but she looked again and again. She smiled and said, "Lord General, this old woman saw that Yumeng's eyes were dull, without any emotion. She is somewhat similar to a puppet. But she is indeed Yumeng. She is similar to the Million Meng Mountain soul cultivators, the promise, is also similar." That's right. Tu Hong nodded. He looked at Yumeng and smiled. "When I first saw Yumeng open her eyes from the crystal coffin, the ecstasy in my heart was incomparable. At that time, I only thought that even if I had to give the entire Gold Spring Mountain to the soul cultivators, it would still be worth it. But, when I saw Yumeng's current appearance, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. It's just that they clearly said that the dead cannot be resurrected. Although the soul cultivator's secret techniques are linked to the soul, they cannot create something out of nothing. They can only use a soul artifact to control a person's body. To put it bluntly, Yumeng is not the Yumeng of the past. She is now nothing more than an empty shell. She is only relying on this soul artifact to support herself." As he spoke, Tu Hong shook the bell and said, "Yumeng, help your husband bring over some strong wine." "Yes, this concubine understands." Yumeng bowed and slowly walked towards another tent. Her face was as cold as ever, without the least bit of emotion. Isn't this similar to the magic of some of the cultivation sects in the country of Xi?" Lan Axian looked at Yumeng's graceful back and whispered, "The Million Meng Mountain soul cultivators wouldn't deceive us, right?" No, they wouldn't. Tu Hong shook his head. What I'm looking for is not an ordinary soul cultivator, but someone with some background. Someone who has a deep understanding of my Dawn Rain continent, is far from those uncivilized soul cultivators. Moreover, they have clearly stated that those aristocratic families in the country of Xi are refining Yu Meng's body into a puppet. Yu Meng will listen to whoever takes the soul artifact. But at this time, Yu Meng is relying on her soul to disperse the mark in her body. She only recognizes me. Even if someone else were to take the soul artifact, it would be useless. Of course, Yu Meng has been sacrificed for many years. I used this crystal coffin to preserve her appearance. If I didn't use a soul cultivator's secret technique to refine her, she still wouldn't be able to leave this place. That's right. Lon Axian understood. She sighed and said, a perfectly good person is now nothing more than a puppet. Even I, an old man, am unable to calm my heart. That's right. Before today, I also had the same thoughts. Tu Hong's eyes flashed with sorrow. I only wanted to stay by Yu Meng's side and watch her unchanging appearance slowly grow old. When the day comes that I reach the end of my life, I will accompany her to the 9 nether realms. But, today, I saw a living Yu Meng. Lon Axian forced a smile. That's right. Tu Hong's eyes flashed with a thoughtful expression. When I saw that female cultivator from the Imperial Thunder Sect, I was simply stupid. Wasn't this a gift from the heavens? A few days ago, the soul cultivators had just left, and now this female cultivator has delivered herself to my doorstep. Wasn't it because the heavens saw my painstaking efforts and came to help me? Chapter 23-27. A million soul cultivators from Meng Mountain? Lon Axian also thoughtfully asked. At this time, Yu Meng walked in with a jug of wine in her hands. She easily placed the jug in front of Tu Hong. Oh. Where's the wine bowl? Tu Hong took the jug and glanced at Yu Meng's empty right hand. I'll go get it. Yu Meng's expression didn't change. She lightly said as she turned around. No need. Go back and rest. Tu Hong's face flashed with gloom as he whispered. Yes, husband. Yu Meng complied and entered the crystal coffin again. She lay down on her back and closed her eyes. Dang dang, Tu Hong shook the bell again, and Yu Meng immediately quieted down and remained motionless. Let's go. Tu Hong closed the lid of the crystal coffin and turned to leave the tent. Lon Axian didn't dare to be negligent. She quickly followed him out. Outside the tent, it was abnormally cold. Tu Hong looked up, squinting his eyes as he looked at the pitch-black ceiling. After a long time, he tilted his head back, took a sip of the strong wine, and handed the jug to Lon Axian. Lon Axian didn't dare to refuse. She also took a small sip, but she didn't hand the jug over to Tu Hong. Tu Hong pointed a finger above his head and said, the soul cultivators have already said that if I hadn't spent a great deal of money to bid for this magic tool fragment called the icy mirror, then I would have created an icy cold space here. If I hadn't placed Yu Meng in the crystal coffin after she died, then even if they had secret soul cultivation techniques, they still wouldn't have been able to awaken her. Moreover, if they didn't have Yu Meng's soul, or if they had a soul that was extremely similar to Yu Meng's soul, then she could only move about in the crystal coffin and the icy mirror. Ah! A soul that is similar to Yu Meng's soul. General is saying. Lon Axian cried out in surprise. Tu Hong didn't even look at Lon Axian. He lifted his hand and took the jug of wine from Lon Axian's hand. He took a long drink and laughed. Yes, it is that female cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. Although I don't know if her soul is similar to Yu Meng's, since they have the same appearance, it is extremely likely that their souls are similar. How could I possibly give up such an excellent opportunity? This old man understands. Lon Axian nodded. When I assign tasks, I already switched the Imperial Thunder sect's positions and transferred them to the most core area. General, find an opportunity to capture Imperial Thunder sect's DUI Qiming. Sigh, what a pity. If it were that simple, why would I hesitate? Tu Hong smiled bitterly. Lon Axian thought for a moment and smiled. Are there any other taboos? Yes, there are a few taboos. Tu Hong nodded. First of all, the soul cultivator told me that the soul must be in perfect condition and must not be damaged in any way. Secondly, the owner of the soul must be willing, otherwise the soul won't be pure. If it carries the owner's imprint, it will break Yu Meng's imprint. If Yu Meng can no longer be resurrected, even if she changes her body, she will still be DUI Qiming. This is troublesome. Lon Axian shook her head. This DUI Qiming seems to be a couple with their captain, Cui Hongshan. He's just an early-stage Foundation establishment brat. He's nothing. Tu Hong sneered. This too knows that this time I have completed the City Lord's plan. How could he not grant this small wish of mine? Won't the Yinshi Prefecture grant the wish of a Jindan stage cultivator from the Sentry City? Do you want this old man too? Lon Axian whispered. No need. Tu Hong arched an eyebrow and proudly said, it would be easy for this too to kill that bastard, but this too disdains it. Besides, if Cui Hongshan dies in Golden Spring Mountain, others won't say anything. But when this too asks the City Lord for DUI Qiming in the future, wouldn't those people be able to use it against me? If those self-righteous fools from the Yinshi Prefecture investigate this matter, then it will become an obstacle. This old man understands. Lon Axian nodded, but then asked, then Golden Spring Mountain, won't protect Cui Hongshan. Won't I let him die here? This too won't do it, old brother Lon won't do it, and even my Golden Spring Mountain disciples won't do it. Tu Hong drank another mouthful of wine and smiled, but who can guarantee that a sword cultivator won't do it? This too can't protect an Imperial Thunder sect disciple just because he has scruples. Wouldn't that be even more of a weakness? This old man understands. Lon Axian nodded. This old man knows what to do. In this war, 5 out of 10 will remain. If the Imperial Thunder sect disciples are lucky, then they will survive. If they aren't, then let them die. Tu Hong picked up the wine jug and slowly walked back into the tent. In Lon Axian's eyes, his back was increasingly lonely. Lon Axian sighed. She knew that it wasn't appropriate for her to stay here any longer. She bowed and said, General, this old man will retire. Go. Tu Hong waved his hand, arrange everything well. Perhaps that sword cultivator will come in a few days. Yes. Lon Axian turned and walked towards the stone wall. A powerful vortex sucked her in, and she disappeared from sight. What? There are actually so many top-grade spirit stone crystal pillars in the reception hall. Xiao Hua had been called out from Cui Hongshan's seclusion room and was very unhappy in his heart. But when he heard that Golden Spring Mountain's top-grade spirit stones were used in such a manner, his eyes began to shine. He smacked his lips and said, Isn't this too much of a waste of heaven's gifts? Looking at Xiao Hua's appearance, Cui Hongshan gave birth to a trace of contempt. Damn it, it's a good thing that I didn't let this bastard go, otherwise. I'm afraid he would have thrown himself onto those spirit stone crystal pillars and used his teeth to bite off a piece of the top-grade spirit stone. A wandering cultivator, no matter how high their cultivation is, they are still different from my cultivation family's upbringing. No matter how high Xiao Hua's cultivation is, compared to Senior Tu Hong, the difference is like clouds and mud. Junior apprentice brother Xiao, Golden Spring Mountain's crystal pillars are array formations, they are used for defense. Zhen Minghui chuckled as he explained. He naturally understood Xiao Hua's shock. Wasn't he also dumbfounded at that time? Also, what that disciple of Golden Spring Mountain said was correct. Golden Spring Mountain may lack anything, but they will never lack spirit stones. That's great, that's great. We came to the right place. Xiao Hua rubbed his fingers together, as if he were already holding some top-grade spirit stones in his hands. Immediately after, Cui Hongshan said a few more things, but Xiao Hua didn't listen in his heart. His mind was filled with the shiny spirit stones. Xiao Hua, Cui Hongshan shouted. What? What's the matter? Xiao Hua obviously didn't hear what Cui Hongshan said, he was slightly stunned. Cui Hongshan was happy in his heart, he didn't care about Xiao Hua's expression and said, Golden Spring Mountain Senior Tu Hong gave my Imperial Thunder Sect a great merit the moment we met. This Cui knows that this is all thanks to you. Now, this Cui wants to discuss with you, should this Cui directly record your merit in the captain token? Or should this merit be recorded on my first squad's disciples? Cui Hongshan mentioning this matter in front of everyone was quite thought-provoking. It could be said that he was frank and sincere, but it could also be said that he had ulterior motives. However, Xiao Hua was too lazy to think about what he was thinking, he waved his hand and said with a smile, naturally it's everyone's merit. If it wasn't for everyone trying their best to kill the beast cultivators, I'm afraid you would have already been killed by them. Junior Martial Brother Xiao. Dui Qiming glanced at Cui Hongshan with some dissatisfaction and advised, actually, against the sword cultivators, we did put in some effort, but against the beast cultivators and giants, it was all thanks to Junior Martial Brother Xiao. It's all thanks to Junior Martial Brother's strength. If we lose the credit, we won't feel at ease. Merit or storage pouch, which is more important? Xiao Hua pursed his lips and extended his hand. Senior Martial Sister Dui, feel free to ask for the merit. Just give the items to Junior Martial Brother. Junior Martial Brother doesn't know. Dui Qiming was anxious. After the Sword Dao battle, we will return to the Imperial Thunder Sect and be rewarded according to our merit. Isn't this merit good stuff? Xiao Hua nodded. When the time comes, just give the good stuff to Xiao Hua. All right. Dui Qiming sized up Xiao Hua with her beautiful eyes. She really didn't understand why Xiao Hua didn't like to be famous. If she had Xiao Hua's cultivation, she would have already made a name for herself in the Sword Dao tournament. By the time she returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect's Dui Lei Palace, wouldn't she be able to get whatever cultivation method and spirit pill she wanted? Maybe everyone has their own ambitions. Dui Qiming could only think like this. After that, Cui Hongshan took out Quan Jinshan's jade slip and told them the area that the Imperial Thunder Sect's first squad had to guard, as well as the location of the supporting array. He then made 10 copies of the jade slip and gave each of them a copy. The Imperial Thunder Sect was responsible for a very large area. If 10 people patrolled together, they wouldn't be able to take care of the entire area. Cui Hongshan complained about Quan Jinshan's irresponsible arrangement and divided the 10 people into 5 groups. 2 people in a group and divided the area they would be patrolling. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Ming Mao and Xiao Hua were in the same group. Xiao Hua didn't care, but Dui Ling, who was in the same group as Zhen Minghui, was already pouting. Let's go. Cui Hongshan acted as if he didn't see it and waved his hand. Today is our first shift. Let's first familiarize ourselves with the environment and set an example for the others. After all, if we were rewarded the moment we arrived, the others will definitely be jealous. Yes, we understand. Zhen Minghui and the others nodded with a smile, but Xiaohua didn't care and secretly said, he really is a fan of politics. This is also the quality of a cultivator aristocratic family. Everyone flew out of the quiet room, and Ming Mao and Xiaohua each showed their tokens and entered the cave that the Qi refinement disciples had dug out from. After flying for a while, they passed through several crisscrossing tunnels and gradually entered the depths of the jade mine. The 10 people of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first small team were divided into 5 groups and flew towards different tunnels. Junior brother Xiao. After flying for a while, seeing that Xiaohua didn't say anything and didn't make any arrangements, Ming Mao couldn't help but ask in a low voice, how should we patrol? Should we follow the route or go against it? Or... it's so troublesome. Xiaohua was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect that there would be so many ways to patrol. He thought that he only needed to fly once. I'll teach junior brother Xiao that when doing something, there should be a plan. What to do first, and what to do afterwards, all of these must be thought out in advance. Ming Mao said with a smile, otherwise, it'll be a mess. Junior brother Xiao wants to become the pillar of my Imperial Thunder sect in the future, so you'll definitely be in charge of a branch. It's better to nurture these abilities as early as possible. Chapter 23-28. Xiaohua felt a headache as soon as he heard this. He was used to doing as he pleased. What planning? What controlling? How could it compare to freedom? Xiaohua waved his hand and said, this little brother's brain is lazy. Let senior apprentice Sister Bright Eyes arrange everything. This little brother will just accompany you from behind. Bright Eyes chuckled and said, senior apprentice brother Zhao's magic power is profound. These are all small details that you don't need to think about. In short, once senior apprentice brother has a status, there will definitely be people who will give you advice. Captain Cui mentioned that Lan Xin. She must be one of Senior Tu Hong's strategists. What are strategists? Xiaohua didn't understand. For Golden Core stage cultivators like Senior Tu Hong, or even nascent soul stage cultivators, they only care about their cultivation base, and are too lazy to divert their attention to the affairs of Golden Spring Mountain. Therefore, there are some cultivators who are good at handling these affairs who come out to help and give advice to Senior Tu Hong. These are the so-called strategists. Bright Eyes patiently explained. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiaohua nodded. He understood that there were some cultivators who didn't have much of a future in terms of cultivation, so they attached themselves to high-level cultivators in order to find a way to improve themselves. Thinking of this, Xiaohua inexplicably thought of the Immortal Beauty School. Senior apprentice brother Xiao is really smart. Just a hint and you understand. Bright Eyes smiled and flattered. Senior apprentice sister Bright Eyes, please don't praise me. This little brother will be your strategists. You should lead the way. Xiaohua smiled and stretched out his hand. Strategists. Bright Eyes was surprised at first. Then, she covered her mouth and laughed. I didn't think that senior apprentice brother Xiao would be so humorous. I really didn't realize it before. As she spoke, Bright Eyes didn't hold back. She picked a tunnel entrance and flew in. Sweat, this Xiao wants to lead the way, but it's a pity that this Xiao always gets lost. It's better if I don't. Xiaohua looked at Bright Eyes' figure as she flew away. He smiled and thought to himself, besides, walking at the back, isn't that bad? There was a saying in the secular world that said, men and women work together. These words were also applicable to the cultivators of the cultivation world. At least, that was what Ming Mao thought. She flew with Xiao Hua for half a day, and it was extremely relaxing. Occasionally, she would even joke with Xiao Hua, and the two of them chatted very harmoniously. However, the only thing that made Ming Mao unhappy was that all the topics were started by her. When she didn't speak, Xiao Hua would just follow behind her without saying a word. I still have to work hard. Ming Mao inwardly encouraged herself. Xiao Hua didn't know what Ming Mao was thinking. His mind wasn't on flirting at all. His mind was already on the spirit stone mine. The stone walls in this spirit stone mine were rather strange. They restricted spiritual sense and Buddhist sense, and they couldn't go very far. It seemed to be a natural restriction. Although Xiao Hua tried his best to release his Buddhist sense, he could only see about 100 feet away. Therefore, although he and Ming Mao flew through a few tunnels and saw a few caves, they didn't discover anything. This caused Xiao Hua to be displeased. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said in a low voice, "Senior Sister Bright Eyes, didn't you notice anything strange?" Oh. Hearing Xiao Hua's sudden question, Ming Mao was secretly happy. She hurriedly asked, "Junior brother Xiao, did you notice anything?" "Senior Sister Bright Eyes, don't you feel strange?" Xiao Hua's eyes darted around as he looked at the spacious tunnel and said, "This is the interior of the Golden Spring Mountain Spirit Stone Vein. It must be bustling with noise and excitement. Not to mention the disciples mining the spirit stones, there must be many disciples patrolling the area. Why haven't we seen any disciples of Jinquan Mountain after flying for so long?" This. Ming Mao didn't think so much. Her thoughts were the same as Xiao Hua's, and they weren't on patrol. I guess this isn't the center of the spirit stone mine. Ming Mao thought for a moment and said with a smile, "We are only here to help. Jinquan Mountain won't let us see the center of the spirit stone mine. It's good enough that they let us patrol without worry. They still want us to contribute to the defensive array, right? And, Senior Sister Bright Eyes is right." Xiao Hua nodded, "But I'm still worried. How about this, Senior Sister will patrol according to the plan that we discussed earlier. I'll go take a look, see if there's anything wrong." Saying that, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and quickly rushed towards a cave on the left. His figure quickly disappeared into the cave. "Junior brother Xiao." Ming Mao was shocked. She stretched out her hand and shouted, "This is an important place of Jinquan Mountain. How can we?" But how could Xiao Hua hear her words? He had already flown away. Why is this fellow so reckless? No wonder Captain Chui was dissatisfied with him. Ming Mao muttered. She looked at the place where Xiao Hua disappeared with some reluctance. Then, she felt an ominous feeling in her heart. Could it be that he didn't want to stay with me? That's why he found an excuse to escape. My appearance isn't any worse than Xue Xue's. It's just that my master isn't as powerful as her master. My Dui Lei Palace is just slightly worse than Sun Lei Palace. No. I can't miss this good opportunity. Senior Sister Dui said it right. Opportunities are meant to be grasped by people. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an opportunity. In any case, Xue and he haven't undergone the dual cultivation ceremony yet. I still have a chance. And, even if they dual cultivate, what can they do? For a cultivator with an outstanding cultivation like Xiao Hua, what's so strange about having a few more dual cultivation partners? If I don't take advantage of the fact that Xiaohua hasn't revealed his strength, I won't be able to regret it in the future when Xiaohua is targeted by many female cultivators. Thinking about how domineering Heavenly Thunder Palace is, no matter how shy this fellow is, I will still capture him. Xiaohua didn't expect that he had already become Ming Mao's target. After he flew into the cave, he first used his divine sense to make a mark on the side. Then, he immediately put on his camouflage robe and used a concealment technique. He followed the cave and flew underground. However, after flying for nearly the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua arrived at an even more remote place. He saw that this place was very messy. The ground was filled with stone fragments of various sizes. Occasionally, there were small pieces of spirit stone fragments on top of the stone fragments. Haha, I'm afraid I'm close to the spirit stone mine. Xiaohua's eyes lit up. He didn't have time to think about why this place wasn't cleaned up. His gaze swept across the place and he flew towards an opening at the end of the cave. There wasn't anyone guarding that opening. When Xiaohua flew into the cave, he couldn't help but be shocked. He saw that this was a square space that was 100 zhang long and several tens of zhang deep. The cave entrance was right above this space. This space was completely empty. There was nothing inside. Wu Xiaohua was very bored. He let out a soft sigh. That woo-woo sound reverberated in the entire space. It was as if Xiaohua was sobbing in his heart. Damn it, Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and he cursed, this is definitely an abandoned mine that has already been mined. Without waiting for this sound to finish reverberating in the space, Xiaohua immediately turned around and went back to search again. However, Xiaohua's luck didn't seem to be good today. It wasn't suitable for him to make a fortune. He searched for a while more. When Ming Mao's patrol was about done, he had no choice but to go back. He found 2 more empty and abandoned mining sites. Are you kidding me? Xiaohua was depressed. When had great Daoist Xiao, who was known as "Thieves don't leave empty-handed," ever been humiliated like this? No, Xiaohua thought, today is my first patrol. Quan Jin Shan might not care. Furthermore, there might be disciples from other sects who have the same plan as this young master. Their cultivation is not good enough. They might be discovered by Tu Hong. This way, there might not be any opportunities in the future. Today, this young master must get to the bottom of this. That's right. In the entire Quan Jin Shan, the one with the highest cultivation was Tu Hong, an early-stage golden core cultivator. This kind of cultivator, in Xiaohua's eyes, had no pressure at all. Wasn't the entire Quan Jin Shan waiting for Xiaohua to bring disaster to it? Thinking, Xiaohua formed a hand seal and entered the ground. He opened his left hand and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. He carefully searched for the location of the spirit stone mine. It was a pity. Although the Dharma eye was powerful, Xiaohua couldn't see far. It was no different from his divine sense. Just as Xiaohua was about to close his transcendence eye, a dozen or so huge earthen yellow pillars suddenly appeared several feet in front of him. Good. Xiaohua's eyes widened in an instant. His magic power surged as he dashed forward. "Oh, there are people here." Just as Xiaohua's figure appeared in a huge space, he was stunned. He saw that this space was actually densely packed with cultivators. And these cultivators were all sitting cross-legged in groups of 3 to 5, surrounding these huge pillars. There was even a faintly discernible gaze that unconsciously swept past the place he appeared. This is bad. Xiaohua hurriedly dodged and used the trace concealment technique again. There's someone. Sure enough, the gaze that saw Xiaohua unconsciously swept past Xiaohua's body and was immediately stunned. He shouted, and his gaze returned to the place where Xiaohua disappeared. At the same time, he jumped up. Who? Hearing the strange movement of that cultivator, the nearby cultivators all opened their eyes and looked towards the sky. Beside the cultivator, a middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator also jumped up and swept his divine sense over there. However, Xiaohua disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had never appeared. The cultivator's divine sense swept for a moment but did not find any trace of him. Su-hu, what did you see? That cultivator frowned and glared at the cultivator who jumped up first and asked. This subordinate seems to have seen a figure appear. Su-hu gritted his teeth. He himself was also not sure. You saw it. That cultivator looked up and down, half believing and half doubting. What did he look like? What was he wearing? This. Su-hu smiled bitterly. He originally saw it unconsciously and Xiaohua disappeared in an instant. How could he remember clearly? After thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, this subordinate could not see clearly. Humph, that cultivator said coldly, that means you are not sure. Also, you did not carefully comprehend the details of the array. Instead, you were casually looking around. Captain. Su-hu hurriedly said, it's not that this subordinate did not want to comprehend it. It's just that the details of this array are too profound. This subordinate was worried that I would delay the great general's plan. This subordinate opened his eyes and wanted to relax. However, this subordinate really did not dare to lie. I heard that in these few days, the disciples of the various sects of the Tao sect have come to my Golden Spring Mountain. If someone were to find this place. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.